What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Will and D. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. My computer's a potato. But I'm here with Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports, and it's conference championship weekend. And there's two marquee matchups I'm really looking forward to. The other ones, who knows what will happen. So it'll be some great action this week.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I just can't believe the regular season's already over. Conference championship week is here. All these great games. It's going to be awesome to talk about all 10 of them. And we got some recaps to get through first on
Mm-hmm.
important matchups that brought to, these games that are going to be happening this week. So it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, first thing I saw, ESPN, Mississippi State won last year. It is not the second consecutive year Ole Miss has won the Egg Bowl. What the heck, ESPN?
I did
But
see
the
that. I did see that. That was hilarious. No, Ole
amateur
Miss
hour.
lost last year. Didn't get the 2-point conversion, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi State. This is abysmal. I mean, their offense just could not do anything in this game. If Mike Leach, rest in peace again to him, if they had his offense and he was coaching, they had a shot in this one. They could have won, and they would have had a better year. And that's why obviously they made the move from Zach Arnett and they just hired Jeff Levy, which people are mixed on because
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that obviously you got Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference. There's just a lot going on with that, and Mississippi State already is kind of a tough job, and it's his first head coaching job. Can he have success there? Who knows? But Mississippi State's had more success when they've had a Dan Mullen, and a Mike Leach, a more offensive-minded head coach running the team. So maybe that will help them out. But they just had no life in this game. They tried, but could not win.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well Will Rogers does in a new system.
Mm.
Because obviously it did not work with Zach Arnett. We'll see where he goes next. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Even the defense for Mississippi State was up and down. That was his calling card. When you're a defensive-minded coach, the defense has to be great, like Iowa's, with their defense is how they win games. But it's also the
Mm-hmm.
SEC. So, yeah, definitely Zach Arnett was not going to work out. But he'll get another job for sure as a DC.
Mm-hmm. And Oregon got their revenge in the Civil War.
I was looking forward to this game. I was really hoping it'd be, like a
Mm-hmm.
nail biter down to the wire like last year's game. But man, Oregon just mat trucked the Beavs. It wasn't even close. Bo Nix, I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
just an efficient day. I mean, all around, Oregon State just could not keep up. It was a hard fought game. And I'm not saying that, they didn't try because they did, but they just were overmatched. And it shows
Mm-hmm.
you how good Oregon can be when they're at their best. And it felt like they were playing some of their best football in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Oregon going to be a tough out for anyone
Very
going.
impressive, too, that they didn't overlook, not that they would
Yeah.
overlook their rival, but didn't look ahead either to, the Pac-12 championship game. And they just took care of business. Very impressive performance from Oregon.
Similar to Texas against Texas Tech, a professional performance by the Longhorns.
This
They,
was even worse than the Oregon State. I know Texas Tech is an Oregon State, so I mean, obviously, some people say it's not super impressive, but Texas has a propensity to not play that well sometimes. Look at the TCU game this year. Look at the Kansas State game this year. Even Iowa State, they struggled for a while. Houston as well. Texas had a lot of games this year where they barely won or they let the team hang around. Not in this one. They completely destroyed Texas Tech. And I think it gave a lot of people confidence that Texas can win in their conference championship game. Can't wait to get to that. But
yeah.
it was a very important game for Texas, to finish the regular season strong and, possibly get themselves a chance to make the playoff if things can break their way.
Missouri, another dominant performance against Arkansas.
Just miss Arkansas when they were winning. What happened to Arkansas? They were a really good team. I mean, were they ever a serious threat to win the SEC? No, but they had some, a couple of good years with Sam Pittman. Now they just, derailed like Baylor has in the Big 12 with Dave Aranda. I mean, this game usually is close between Missouri and Arkansas. It's one of the games I look forward to on Friday and everything. But unfortunately, I mean, it's good that Missouri is, winning and they're having a great year. That's, I would say, a bigger reason why this game was a block because Missouri normally isn't this good. So it was a great season by them. But still, if Arkansas was playing the way that they were a couple years ago, this still probably would have been a close game. So I think it just speaks more volumes to how poorly Arkansas is playing right now. And they have to, get back on track or possibly Sam Pittman's not going to be there much longer.
LW, appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. We knew this game was going to be a dump truck the way
You
Michigan
said you
State.
weren't even going to watch it. I think you had Michigan State at 0 points, didn't you? Or did you give them 3? I can't remember.
I'm not totally sure, but
I know
yeah,
I gave him like 7 to be nice. Man, there was no offense. Absolutely no offense. It's funny, though, that Penn State's leading receiver was Singleton, the running back. He had 68 receiving yards on 2 passes or 2 receptions. That's funny right there. But this game, I mean, it just shows you that the gap between Penn State and the rest of the league, even though they are behind Michigan, Ohio State, is still pretty impressive. Penn State is a really solid third team. Obviously, that could change with the additions of the Pac schools and in the conference, but this was just not a close game at all. Michigan State just needed their season to end, and maybe Jonathan Smith can turn around next year.
For sure. It's sad to see what Jonathan Smith can do there. Oklahoma and TCU, not much defense in this game, but Oklahoma's offense is better than TCU's offense, so the Sooners did win. But I kept a bit of an eye on this game a bit.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with Oklahoma because a lot of people said at the beginning of the season that their defense actually looked decent. I mean, I know they were playing a bunch of teams that weren't very good, but they had a couple performances, right? Yeah, maybe Oklahoma's defense is a little bit better. Then they won the Texas game, and then people are like, oh, maybe Oklahoma can, possibly win the conference. And then they just kind of fell apart a bit there, obviously losing to Kansas and Oklahoma State. And then they had that rough game against UCF as well. They just faltered down the stretch. And even this game, even though they won, and technically it was in blowout fashion, I guess, if you want to be fair, they won by 3 scores, giving up 45 points to TCU should not happen. So I don't know what happened to Oklahoma's
TCU's
defense.
offense has been horrible.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. TCU's offense, they were starting a freshman quarterback in Josh Hoover because of the fact Chandler Morris has been out for the last few weeks. So Oklahoma definitely regressed in the second half of the season on defense. And if they want to be a contender ever in the SEC, that defense has to improve or they're not going to be winning, 9 or 10 games very often in the SEC.
This game was the game. I mean, it was the game of the day. Wait, why isn't it? Okay, thank you. This game was the game of the day. And, I mean, it was kind of painful to watch, but it was at least close.
Hey, I said it last week, and I'll say it again. If you like points, go shopping on Black Friday or watch the TCU-Oklahoma game. I would say I nailed it pretty good because TCU-Oklahoma had a lot of points, and if people didn't care about that game, go Black Friday shopping because this was an ugly game. Both teams, absolutely an abysmal performance on offense, and somehow the game still went under. Somehow. I don't know how. It was a 25 over-under point spread, and they scored 23. So they still went under. And Nebraska blew their bowl chances. You had it. All you had to do was win one of your last few games, and you lost them all in close fashion, just like the Scott Frost era. And somehow Iowa keeps on winning, even though they have no offense at all whatsoever. Deacon Hill looks like Nate Stanley physically, but he does not look like him when he's throwing the football at all whatsoever. Nate Stanley definitely had a lot more success. Deacon Hill struggled, but I was right again when I said that when Cade McNamara got hurt, it wasn't going to affect Iowa's season at all because they were just going to keep somehow winning with that.
Maybe they would have won 11-1, but
maybe, but they still won the West. That's what I was saying. Yeah. It wasn't going to affect their chances to win the West, and it didn't, ironically. But now that you have no divisions coming up next year and the Pac schools coming, I was in it for a rude awakening. Defense isn't going to be enough to win against some of those teams.
Yeah, defense and special teams. You can't punt your way to victory every game.
You might be able to beat Indiana and Nebraska like that, but you're not going to be able to beat Penn State, USC, and Washington, and, Ohio State on a frequent basis doing that. Got to have some offense.
There's potential in Chubba Purdy, but, I mean, he had that one great touchdown pass.
Yeah, well, it was also wide open, too. It was like actually blown coverage. You want to talk about a rare mistake from Iowa. It was just a rare mistake. Blown coverage, and it was a wide open pass. I mean, they cycled through 3 quarterbacks, though. Jeff Sims and then Heinrich Harbor, now, Chubba Purdy. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to go with one of these 3 guys, or are they going to go with a portal guy? I've seen a lot of Nebraska fans say they need to go after the portal again. But at some point, you have to be able to develop somebody that you got in your program. Because if not, then it's just going to be a revolving door of trying to, hoping that one of these guys sticks. Because I don't know if Nebraska is going to be able to get like a top name portal guy. Maybe because of Matt Rule being there and they believe in, what he can do. But if that doesn't happen, then Nebraska is going to really struggle in the new Big Ten.
If Nebraska could have kept Dylan Raiola, I mean, that would look really good for them in the future because he's the #1 quarterback in the country, but flipped to Georgia.
Oh, yeah. I mean, who would you rather play for, current Nebraska or Georgia? I mean, it's not even close at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
I can see why it didn't go to Nebraska. This isn't 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it does sting for Nebraska. Maybe they can get a portal guy. There's going to be a lot of portal guys. I mean, they're already happened. Tyler Van Doms is in the portal already. Brendan Sorsby from Indiana is in the portal. I haven't checked the full list. I've just
Will
seen
Rogers is in the portal.
Will Rogers in the portal. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys already jumping ship. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Sorsby could go back to Indiana if they, hire a coach and he likes what, they're saying to him and everything before he transfers. But, yeah, it's going to be madness in the portal this year. So, Nebraska might be able to pick up somebody.
Yeah. See if they can find their next Tommy Frazier. This game was weird, man. I thought it was going to be the quarterbacks it was going to be Frank Harris against Michael Pratt, quarterback battle. Both of them played bad. Tulane overall has a better team than UTSA, so they did win, but I don't know. It wasn't the game I was expecting.
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it was a boring game. It was obviously more interesting than Iowa, Nebraska with points. There was a few more points, but yeah, it was a pretty ugly game compared to what I thought. I thought it'd be like a 35-31 game. Both teams, slinging it downfield. Frank Harris using his legs when he can. But yeah, it wasn't a very good game in that regard. If that's what you were expecting, like we both were. But Tulane, just in general, I mean, they've been good enough to win, but the last few weeks, they've had a lot of performances where they have not looked their best. So they have to play well if they want to win the American Conference Championship game. But they might not,
even if they win, they might not get picked for the New Year's Six Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting who actually gets it. It's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a one more dominant lead.
Man, when Boston College went up 7... If Boston College went up 7-0, I'm like, oh my gosh, we might get to laugh at Miami. But no, Miami blew out Boston College like everyone expected.
I had a great Friday. I had an absolute great Friday. Every game went the way that I picked. I don't think I got any game wrong on Friday, which is unbelievable. I picked Iowa to beat Nebraska. I picked Miami to beat Boston College. Boston College, why? I know you win 6 games, you make a bowl, but why does this team get to go bowling? I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. They have not beaten anybody good except Georgia Tech. Everyone else that they've beaten is abysmal. I understand that the rules are the rules, but this team's terrible. Miami, I mean, I'm not saying they played, bad or anything. They played all right, but like Miami struggled against almost every team they played this year. And Boston College gets beat by 25. That just shows you how good the Eagles are. They're not. And Castellanos, I'd be surprised if he wants to stick it out at BC unless he feels maybe they'll do better next year, but I don't see it. I would probably go somewhere else if I was him.
Yeah. Memphis beat up on Temple.
And the one more thing on Boston College, if Garrett Schrader was the quarterback for Syracuse against Boston College instead of Jack Del Rio, there's a really good chance that Boston College is 5-7. They're not in a bowl game. So they're lucky Schrader was injured.
That was a bonkers game.
Utah State, New Mexico. I don't know if you saw any of this game, but I did. I watched the ending of it. It was unbelievable. I mean, it started having like a wintry mix a little bit. I mean, it wasn't nothing like the Kansas State, Iowa State game. I don't know if you saw that on TV, but man, there was snow all over the field there. But there was a little wintry mix at the end of this game, and both teams were just running the ball down each other's throats. But somehow Utah State got the bowl eligibility with a win. But it was a good game. Very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm. I remember 2021, Michigan, Ohio State, there was a bit of snow.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Michigan State, Penn State game was right after it. Mm-hmm. And man, the snow was piling up. Yeah,
it's hilarious to me still that Ohio State, fans say they would have won if it wasn't the weather and everything. And then, like, we would have beat Northwestern by more if it wasn't the weather. It's always the weather. I mean, you're in the Big Ten. What do you expect? The weather's going to happen, man.
Man, Air Force.
Never pick against Boise at home, ever. You just can't do it unless obviously you're playing Alabama or Washington or whatever. But if they're playing some of their conference opponents on their own turf, they're going to win. Air Force has collapsed. They were 8-0 and they lost their last 4 games. I don't know why. I don't know how. Whatever the reason, they tanked. I mean, obviously still going to make a bowl, but this team looked like they possibly were going to go 11-1 or undefeated the way they were playing. They were blowing out people at the beginning of the season, destroying them. And they just, like I said, stopped playing good football. But again, it's hard to pick against Boise at home.
Man, sad story there.
Did you see the computer rules with the Mountain West? How weird that was? Because they had UNLV was 9-3 and 6-2 in the conference, and Boise State was 7-5, 6-2, and San Jose State was 7-5 and 6-2. But they had it where they had to do these computer projections or whatever, like who was actually the best team or whatever. And they gave it to UNLV because they were 9-3, and then they picked Boise over San Jose because Boise beat them. It was the weirdest ruling ever. I didn't understand this. There was like a lot of metrics they were talking about, and I'm like, so now we're using computer rules to decide who makes the conference championship game. So now, yeah, it's Boise and UNLV, and San Jose State got left home. Crazy.
What the heck?
I don't get it completely. That's the best explanation I got.
Notre Dame ends their Pac-12 network career 1-0. Their Irish are now will be unbeaten in the Pac-12 network as they played the last ever Pac-12 network college football game and ended up winning over Stanford. 56.
Yeah, it was hilarious though on Twitter, the meltdown with Notre Dame fans when it was close early. I'm like, you're going to win the game. You are going to win. Stanford is not going to beat you. But it was funny. They're like, we're going to lose to Stanford, fire Marcus Freeman. It's like, come on, man. I mean, and it's hilarious to me that so many Notre Dame fans were clamoring for Sam Hartman to get benched so that, play the backups so he can get some reps. But then when you're struggling against Stanford a little bit, then you're complaining about it. It's like, that's wwhy you need your starting quarterback because it'd probably be even worse to play your backup. So, I mean, I know Hartman struggled down the stretch, but Notre Dame won because of Estime on the ground. And, I mean, 9-3 is a decent season, but like I said before, they could have been so much better if they had a couple more things break their way. But at least they had a better year than last year. Perceptually.
Hopefully we could get to 10 wins in the bowl game. We'll see who we play. Stanford going 0 at home is a little sad, but they don't have many fans, so.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's better for them when they're on the road because at least even if they're playing against a crowd that's against them, the crowd can, amp them up. When they're at home and there's no one there, it's like the 2020 season.
Yeah. Virginia Tech taking down Virginia 55-17.
Why couldn't Carolina do this? Why couldn't Carolina do this? I mean, this is a rivalry game, man. I mean, you think Virginia would be amped up and they knock off, or even get close to knocking off their rival in the Hokies. What was this? 55-17. If Virginia Tech could do this, North Carolina should have done this. Why, North Carolina, did you have to blow your season with terrible losses like this? The Virginia, Georgia Tech, etc. The Virginia one is just egregious because Va Tech, they're decent, but man, 55-17, what an emphatic way to beat your rival and get bowl eligibility. Unbelievable.
Did you see what they're celebrating afterwards? They're doing like a team picture after the game.
I don't think I saw that.
They put the sprinklers on. The Virginia staff, they put the sprinklers on to kick them out because they didn't want them celebrating on their field.
Wow. I mean, hey, I get it. I get it to an extent, but that's hilarious. I wonder if they'll get like, I don't want to say reprimanded, but tell like, why don't do that anymore. I don't know. That's funny though. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll share that to you after. Share that to you after the stream. It's fun.
Yeah, I gotta see that, man. Yeah. I wish I had seen it.
Georgia kind of slipped through Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's funny too because of the fact me and you both picked Georgia Tech to get obliterated by Georgia. We thought Georgia would destroy them, and I had a couple of people say to me, "No, Georgia Tech's going to keep it close, and it's going to be a 4-quarter game." Well, they were technically right to an extent. I mean, there was never a point where I thought Georgia would lose this game, but the fact that Georgia Tech only lost by 8, that is impressive. They played hard, but I don't know how much of it was Georgia not playing as well as they've been lately, though, because Georgia has done this before. Now, they don't normally do it against Georgia Tech, but Georgia's had a few games, even this year, Auburn, South Carolina, now this one, where they have not looked their best. Then they've had other games where they just completely destroy their opponent, like Kentucky. So I think part of it, Georgia didn't play as well as they should have, and I think part of it's that Georgia Tech played a lot better than people were expecting.
Yeah. It said SEC record 29 straight win. I mean, I thought they were talking about SEC game for a second, but I guess that makes sense. 29. Though they're the first SEC team to win 29 straight.
I mean, that's a lot of games. It's very impressive. I mean, no one's beaten them. And maybe the Crimson Tide will be the first to do that in the championship game.
Man.
I mean, I don't know, though, either. We'll talk about that. But Georgia, I mean, they've been the best team in the country by far the last 3 years. I mean, there's definitely no debate.
Michigan, we called it Michigan to beat Ohio State.
It's so funny to me because of the fact Michigan fans were praising Sherrone Moore's play calling. You know, how they had a couple of those gadget plays that they ran, like Donovan Edwards pass and everything, that, you know, and Ohio State play more conservatively. What if Michigan's, you know, trick plays didn't work? And then everybody be like, Sherrone Moore, terrible job. He blew the game. And it's like, that's the thing, though. When it works, you're a genius. When it doesn't work, you're not. But fortunately for Michigan, it worked. And Kyle McCord, those 2 picks, obviously the last one on the final possession, you know, like you said, Will, if he had done that against Notre Dame,
it was the same play. It was like the same throw, the same mistake, but it went through DJ Brown's hands.
I mean, think about Notre Dame. This game and that game were basically almost the exact same, except Michigan held on, Notre Dame didn't. But yeah, the first pick as well. I mean, Kyle McCord, if he doesn't have those 2 picks, there's a good chance Ohio State wins this one. But since he had the 2 mistakes and Michigan played really well and didn't make any errors, that's why they won. And that home crowd, unbelievable. Obviously, that was expected. You know, it was a hype game for a reason. But, man, it is impressive Michigan won without Harbaugh. Very impressive. They played hard. And now Ohio State, they play the waiting game. They have to have help, a lot of help to even have a shot of sneaking into the playoff. More likely they won't. But if things break their way, it's still possible. But yeah, very impressive for Michigan. I was very weary on picking them, but glad I did, obviously, because they pulled it out.
I think Ryan Day should have done, I don't know, I felt like his play calling was just bland and vanilla, and he was playing
that's what people said. It was very conservative versus Michigan had more robust play calling, because there's an argument to be made that Ohio State has more talent. They probably do, you know, based off the recruiting, based off the players they have more talent than Michigan. And like Marvin Harrison, as much as people say that he's the guy, they've got other good receivers. He's the guy, but they have other good receivers, and it just felt like they kind of underutilized some of them.
I feel like they should have done like a 1 or 2 gadget plays to get Marvin Harrison Jr. open. I mean, you shouldn't have to get him open, but like do a couple gadget plays to get him the ball. And they did.
And then it makes the defense have to change the way that they're playing.
Only 5 receptions for him. That's got to be at least 8. I felt like for Ohio State to win.
Ohio State, if they played a little bit more robust, there's a good chance, and plus the no picks, that they're going to win. But they just made a couple mistakes, and like you said, the play calling was kind of bland, and that's why they didn't pull it out. And I just you would have never have thought that, you know, 3 years ago that Michigan would have beaten them 3 times in a row. I mean, the 3rd time in a row that Michigan's won. It's been 3 years. I mean, they're starting their own stretch. Ohio State had 8 in a row on them. Now Michigan's got 3 in a row. It's crazy. We'll see if they can do it a 4th time next year. I don't know, though.
I know. Yeah, I think this is the first time Michigan's won 3 in a row since, I believe, 89, 90, 91.
Yeah, it's like the 90s or the late 80s, something like that. I saw something like that, too. But it's been basically around 30 years. It's been a long time. Because, I mean, Ohio State's just been dominant. They've been the best team in the Big Ten.
And those were probably and those like 89, 88, 80. Yeah, I think it's the first, because Michigan won in 88, 90, 88, 89, 90, 91. Those were Ohio State's like worst 4 years in the past like 80 years. So
yeah, it's because Indiana beat them in 88. That's how bad Ohio State was. If Indiana's winning.
Washington looked ahead. but they got away with it. They were looking ahead though. Penix couldn't watch it the last few.
I don't know what to make of Washington right now. It's like when Oklahoma beat Texas. You see it with some of these teams, though. They get that big win, and then they kind of coast. Washington, you beat Oregon, and everybody thinks that you're the class of the pack. And then ever since that game, Oregon's looked better. Oregon's been playing better. They've been more dominant against everybody they played. Whereas Washington, if you look at their last 3 or 4 games, they've been in competitive games against every team. They've had a chance to lose every game. Now, obviously, all that matters is that they've won all the games. They're undefeated. They're still in the playoff race. If they win, they're in. If they lose, a lot of things would have to go their way for them to have a shot still. But Washington just does not look like the same team. Penix's numbers have dropped hard. I don't know if it's because teams are starting to figure out what they're doing, but early on in the year, that's why he has so many passing yards, because he was throwing for like 400 yards, like game in and game out early in the season. Now that's being reduced to 200 yards, 150, 250. Now, I will say that because it's later in the season, the conditions are worsening on the field. Obviously, that Oregon State game, the rain was abysmal, and that's part of the reason why, he didn't have a lot of passing yards. But for whatever reason, it just maybe weather. They beat Oregon, so they feel like they're on top of the world. They haven't looked as good lately. And if they play like they did in this game against Oregon, they don't have any chance to win. They have to play like they did the first time against Oregon and like they did very early on in the season when they were blowing out Michigan State and destroying teams that they
Everyone blew out Michigan State except Indiana.
Well, you know what I mean, though? Like, just lately, because, think about it. The way Washington State's looked before the Colorado game, how much better has Washington State looked than Michigan State? Not much better. They lost to Stanford. They lost to Cal. They lost to Arizona State. Washington State's been horrible. Yes, they blew out Colorado, but then they play this well against Washington. Washington barely wins. There was a couple moments where I thought they weren't going to win. They pulled it out, but like I said, this Washington team has slipped a bit since that Oregon game. Slipped a lot, actually, and they're going to have to play better than this if they want to win the Pac-12.
Yeah, they've been hoping to win their first national championship since '91, and they don't look as good as that team does. So we'll see.
When you get a big win, though, you have to continue it. It's hard sometimes. It gets in your head. But you can just tell, Oregon, since they lost, they have revenge on their mind. They want it. And that's why they're favored by a lot. They're favored by almost like 7, 8, 9 points, whatever. I have to see the spread again. But a lot of people are back in Oregon right now. And I wonder if the roles were reversed. If Oregon had have beaten Washington earlier this year instead of Washington winning, I wonder if the roles would be reversed and Washington be the team that's playing better, looking to prove, and Oregon would be slipping. We don't know that, but I do believe, like me and you have said it all year, even when Oregon lost, that Oregon looks like the more complete team. Washington's defense is decent. Their offense relies heavy on the pass, even though Dylan Johnson's good on the ground. But Oregon, they have a rushing attack that's great. Their passing attack is great. Knicks can run, and their defense is better than Washington's. So, yes, Oregon's the more complete team. Washington found a way to win the first one.
Florida State, there's a couple moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, is Florida actually going to do it? Are they going to make a bowl? No bowl for Florida like I projected at the beginning of the year. So I'm happy.
Yeah, you did a good job on that.
Yeah, happy I got that one right.
I said 6-6. I picked 6-6 because I had them beating Arkansas or South Carolina. I think I had them beating South Carolina. I don't know. I can't remember what my preseason, like looking at the schedule, who I picked, but I had them going 6-6, and they blew it. 2 games they should have won. They absolutely blew it. And they almost beat Missouri, which obviously that's probably another game that I don't think I would have had Missouri winning at the beginning of the year, but Missouri ended up doing, a lot better than everyone thought. But yeah, Florida losing all their games down the stretch, not making a bowl. But this game right here would not have been as close if Travis was.
Oh, no.
The thing is obviously everyone knows that, but this game, when you watch the game, if you watch the entire game, which I basically watched the majority of it, except flipping to other games a few times because some of them were close as well, Florida never looked like they were going to win. Like, they were trying their best, but you're playing against a backup quarterback. And obviously, Florida had a backup quarterback of their own because Graham Mertz is out, and Max Brown was the quarterback, but he's just not ready. He was making mistakes. Some of his passes were online, but Florida, if Graham Mertz is playing, there's a shot they win this one, maybe without Travis. But they just couldn't get it done. But, yeah, there's never really a moment where I thought Florida State was going to lose. The only time I did was when it was 12-0. I was like, maybe. But then once Florida State took the lead, I'm like, they got it because Florida can't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But definitely, if Florida State wants to make sure they win next week, Roadmaker has to have more than 134 passing yards. Cannot happen.
No. Well, crazy Iron Bowl. The bad snap, I'm like, oh my gosh, Auburn's actually going to do it. They're like, nope, they aren't.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was actually live on the Voice of College Football with One Scoop John. You know, he took over for Mart on the Michigan-Ohio State post-game show, and I was on there talking to him. We were watching the game together as it was unfolding. And I was like, man, it's all over. I'm like, it's all over. I was watching it. My family was watching the game as well. They thought it was all over. I mean, Jalen Milroe, he crosses the line of scrimmage as well, you know, and he throws the ball. He tries to jump back and he throws the ball. And, you know, obviously you can't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage. So we got a penalty on that right after you had the bot snap. So it's 4th and 31. It was like first, you know, in goal or whatever at like the 9, and it becomes 4th and 31. I was like, it's over. Alabama's actually going to lose to the Auburn Tigers, the team that lost to New Mexico State the week prior. Auburn bounces back and plays so much better than they did against New Mexico State. Auburn would have beaten New Mexico State by like 30 if they played this good. Mm-hmm. They just played horrible against New Mexico State. It's not that they're bad, but awful performance, but Auburn bounced back. But then Jalen Milroe throws a dime to Isaiah Bond in the left corner of the end zone. Very reminiscent to Ja'Cory Brooks' catch 2 years ago in the right corner of the end zone in the Iron Bowl against Auburn and Jordan Hare. Bryce Young threw it to him, and somehow Alabama survives, and they're still in the college football playoff race, going to the SEC championship game against Georgia. Just unbelievable. It was so funny, too, because a caller called in to Mark, and they were like, weird things always happen in Jordan Hare, and Alabama usually gets the short end of the stick. And then Mark was like, you do realize you won there 2 years ago on the exact same play, right? So Alabama got lucky the last 2 times they played in Jordan Hare, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Why did he only – you need to rush more people in that situation. You can't just sit them all in the back.
That was terrible. I know why they did it, though, because obviously you're trying to cover the receivers, but how do they leave Bond open? I mean, how do you leave him open in the left corner? You can't give a guy like that any space. If you're dropping that many guys, you got to double-team Bond. You got to double-team Burton. Like, those are your, you know, the playmakers for Alabama. You got to double-team, but they single covered him in the left corner of the end zone. He got it. But, yeah, rushing 2. I think they wanted to contain a Milroe scramble as well, because obviously if they rushed 3 or 4, Milroe maybe could have ran down the field. If things broke down, maybe he could have got close to the end zone. So I think that's what they were trying to prevent. But if you're dropping that many guys, you cannot have a receiver open. And that's what they did. And Alabama somehow won. But all Alabama fans around the world were rejoicing so hard after this game because they thought it was all over for the Tide. Thought it was all over, but Bama somehow survived. Unbelievable game.
All right. I think that defensive coordinator needs to be fired. Robertson, is that his name? I don't know.
Yeah, that's not a good look at all for him.
Not a good look for the Louisville Cardinals either.
Kentucky. I was this close. If you remember last week, I said Kentucky could win. Literally, when you were like starting, the intro for this game, I was like, Kentucky could win. And then I picked Louisville. I was like, I think Louisville will win 31-28. I picked their score right, 31. But why? Why did I not bite on the Kentucky? I should have done it. If you had played a little bit better in a couple more games, Kentucky, if you had to beat South Carolina, I probably would have picked you. But I thought, you know what? I don't think they're that good enough to get it done. Louisville proved what we knew all along, that Louisville was not a top 10 team. Louisville's a good team. They're having a great year. Proud of Jeff Brom. Happy for Louisville fans, including Austin. But yet again, Louisville is just not that team. They played an easy schedule. That helped them out big time. And unfortunately, I know rivalry games, anything can happen because Alabama was this close to losing to Auburn. I get it. Trust me, I do. But Louisville should have won this game.
They could still win the conference championship game against Florida State. That's the thing. I wouldn't know.
They could. Unfortunately, though, obviously, if they beat Kentucky, they still would have been technically in the race for the playoff, even though no one said that they had a legitimate chance. They had no chance, but at least it kept it interesting. But yeah, I mean, they could. If Travis was in, I don't even think anybody would be debating it. But with him out, you never know. Still, again, proud of Louisville having a great year, but they just weren't, I guess, deserving of as much of the hype as people were getting, saying that they were like legitimately a top 10 team. Some people said that, and it just wasn't the case.
Man, I thought A&M for a second there was gonna be able to pull it out, but Jalen Daniels and LSU pulled away late and won.
I'm just gonna say it, and I know people are gonna probably disagree with me, but I've thought about this for a while. If LSU had the defense that they had back when Joe Burrow was at quarterback,
oh yeah,
LSU legitimately could have had a shot to either be a one-loss team or maybe very, very, very possibly undefeated. Not saying they would have been undefeated, but there's a shot. And why is that? Because Jaden Daniels has legitimately been fantastic. Played great all season long. No one can deny that. And it does stink for him that he is not going to be able to be in probably a Heisman, winner, not have a chance to be. I mean, he'll get, to New York if that's where they're hosting it. But I just don't think he's going to win. I mean, Bo Nix is deserving if Penix still has a shot, even though lately the yards haven't been there. But Jane Daniels is the reason this team's 9-3 because that defense is terrible. LSU's defense is frustratingly bad. It's not like USC bad where it's just like, okay, it's horrible. The scheme's bad. Everything about it's bad. LSU's is bad in a different way because this is a team that normally is good at defense. Always. And they still have talent on that side of the ball, but they just aren't playing good defense. And you've got a quarterback that's playing better than he ever has in college football by far. Jay Daniels was not this good last year. And obviously LSU had a better year nationally because obviously, beating Bama and everything. And they were in the college football playoff race till the end when they lost to A&M and obviously got blown out by Georgia. But LSU just kind of got forgotten about this year because they lost 3 games. Had no chance to win the West, had no chance to make the playoff, and then Jane Daniels putting up all his stats, and they're just empty yards to a lot of people, and it does stink for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I doubt that D coordinator's coming back. I'll just say that.
I wouldn't. I mean, that defense didn't do them any favors at all this season.
Mm-hmm. Arizona, Noah Fafita, 527 yards.
Noah Fafita, if he was in all season, imagine what this team could have been. Imagine what Arizona could have been if he had more experience at the beginning of the year and they beat Mississippi State. What if they beat USC? I mean, this team, again, this close. You talk about a team that was that close. Arizona's playing better football than Louisville right now. And that's not even close. The way Arizona's playing right now, if they played the way they played in this game against Louisville, they would win. Arizona is on fire. This is the best I've seen Arizona in a decade, by far. It's unbelievable how well they're playing. Now, is it going to be a fluke? Are they going to continue this next year? I don't know. I think that there's a shot that they could be this good again, especially if Jed Fish does stay. If he leaves, things could get dicey. And what if Fafita leaves for a better, program? I mean, who knows? With the portal, you just never know anymore. But this has been a fantastic year for Arizona. Happy for their fans. And Fafita, wow, what a season he's had.
He's only a true freshman, man. He's going to be
That's
good.
even crazier. I mean, and he's so small. He's like 5'9". I mean, like I said, I don't know how he would do if he was playing, more, tough competition like in the Big Ten or the SEC because he's played some tough teams. But, I mean, obviously the Pac's not, known for defense. But still, he's had an incredible year. It's very impressive what he's done.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see if he stays with Arizona and goes to the Big 12 or goes somewhere else.
Yeah, I hope for Arizona fans' sake he stays. But like I said, in this portal era, it is hard to keep people. Very hard.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, like Indiana already has like 18 guys in the portal, and it's been less than 48 hours since the firing of Tom Allen. And they're already like basically a fifth of the team's already in the portal. That's what happens. I know that's an extreme because he got fired, but a lot of teams are going to have that many transfers right when the season's over. And it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Fafita's offers. His only offers are his top 5 was Arizona, Cal, Fresno State, Hawaii, and Idaho State.
man, I mean, that's not a long list there. Obviously, Arizona, Fresno State are, the bigger offers, but that's not very extensive. And I think the size, his height was why. If he was 6'1", he probably would have gotten a lot more offers, but it's hard for those big programs to want to take a guy that's only 5'9". But yeah, he's proved it so far. Can he continue it in the future, next season and beyond? Who knows? But he's had a great start to his career.
Yeah, on the 247 composite, he was rated the 38th best quarterback. In the regular 247, he was ranked the 40th best quarterback. So.
Yeah, it's not very high. I mean, that's a lot of quarterbacks ahead of him. Was he rated a 3-star?
3-star.
Okay, yeah, because I know that a few more and you're unranked. But yeah, 3-star recruit only offers those schools. That's wild.
Yeah.
Diamonds in the rough. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
The snow. This was the snow game here. There was so much snow on the field. And what's funny to me is I watched Iowa and Nebraska, and those two teams muck it up with no passing yards. And yet you've got Iowa State and Kansas State out here slinging it in the snow. Both teams were throwing the football. I'm like, why can't Iowa and Nebraska do this in fair weather? Come on. I mean, I know Chuba Purdy had the one pass, but still, other than that, there was not a lot of passing going on in that game. But this game, it was wild to watch these two teams try their best to pass the ball in the snow. It was a good game, very fun to watch. But Matt Campbell, he was very happy. His team got to 7 wins. 7 wins in 3 of his last 4 seasons as the Cyclones head coach. They're still having a decent year. They faded a bit down the stretch, but 6-3 in the conference, not too bad, especially after losing to Iowa and Ohio in the non-con. And Kansas State, they had a good year, but not a great year. They were good this year.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Sorry, my computer's being... Okay, there we go.
You're good.
And Oklahoma State almost blew their chance of the Big 12 championship.
All I have to say is about Oklahoma State, bless you, Oklahoma State, I don't understand why they beat Oklahoma, but then they have had abysmal performances. I'm not saying this was an abysmal performance. That UCF game, I don't know if I can get that out of my head. I understand the South Alabama games. Early in the year, they were trying to find their quarterback, and they figured it out. But then they lost to UCF 45-3. And then they've had a couple of rough performances after that. And then, obviously, they win this game against BYU in overtime. And, I mean, they're in the Big 12 championship game, so they've had a great year, but they've been a hard team to figure out. If Oklahoma State plays to their potential, in some of their better performances this year, like the Oklahoma game, this team can win the Big 12 championship game. But if they play like they did in this game, especially the UCF game, they won't. This has been a good team, but they are inconsistent at times.
Just like my computer. Come on.
Yeah, definitely your computer is very inconsistent. And BYU, they missed the bowl too. They're 5-7 now, right? Yeah. They collapsed. They were like 5-3. And BYU just crumbled down the stretch.
Yeah.
And Ollie Gordon, 5 touchdowns too. Crazy.
So they will be playing Texas in the Big 12 championship game. I don't know how that'll go for them.
Like I said, the Cowboys are inconsistent, so you never know what you're going to get from them. Good Cowboys, they can win. Bad Cowboys probably get smoked, but you never know.
Tennessee ran over Vandy again.
I mean, I guess it's impressive Vandy scored 24, I guess. But 14 of them was in the fourth quarter. But, yeah, this game wasn't close at all.
NC State, UNC, man. For 4 years in a row, NC State has beaten the Tar Heels.
Why is North Carolina so good at starting out the year? Looking like they're legit, looking like they could possibly be an ACC title contender, win the league, maybe be a playoff contender, and they blow it. Why? I mean, they were ranked 10th in the nation, and then you lose to Virginia. Then you lose to Georgia Tech. And then you lose to Clemson and NC State, and you end up having an 8-4 year where no one thinks you're good. I mean, Tennessee went 8-4, and everybody's disappointed in the Vols. But I feel like more people are disappointed in Carolina because just the way they ended this season is terrible. Like NC State, their quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's looking like Virginia Brennan Armstrong from 21. Like, what in the world? North Carolina makes everyone look good. on offense. Just bad performance. And then they don't give up a point in the fourth quarter. But then look, North Carolina doesn't score a point in the fourth quarter. Drake May has not been protected well this year. And even though Amari Hampton's had a fantastic season on the ground, just there's something off. There's just has something been off with a lot of these games down the stretch, whether they just can't get enough protection on the O-line, their defense can't get enough stops. It's been just a terrible way to end the season. Just another example of North Carolina blowing it down the stretch of the season. It just makes no one believe that this team's ever going to be any better than an 8-4, 9-3 type of team.
Yeah, NC State looking like Notre Dame's best win now. I think they've passed USC in the best win ranking.
I will say, though, that NC State is probably playing better now than they were then. Not to discredit Notre Dame at all, but if they played now, it probably would have been closer, especially if it was, it was in Raleigh. And I'm just saying, because you talk about like when Mark, he does his top 25, it makes sense, and he always says teams shift throughout the season on how they're playing. That's true. It is definitely true. When you play a team matters. Notre Dame was playing great, and they blew out NC State. NC State started to improve after that Marshall game. They beat Marshall, and then they started to play better, and down the stretch of the season, they've been one of the best teams in the ACC.
Mm-hmm. Clemson beat South Carolina in a game that made people go to sleep. This was not...
This game was, if you want to talk about the Iowa-Nebraska game, at least that game was expected to be low scoring. What happened here? Spencer Rattler had 112 passing yards and a pick, and he was the leading passer in the game. Cade Klubnik threw for like 90 yards, and he had a couple picks. Ugly game. An absolutely ugly game. Clemson was lucky South Carolina was garbage this year, unfortunately. Because if South Carolina was even decent, then Clemson would have lost this game. They did not play well at all. And I don't know how South Carolina beat Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky loses to South Carolina, and then they beat Louisville. Again, that's college football for you. It makes no sense. South Carolina should not have beaten Kentucky if Kentucky's going out there and beating Louisville. But like I said, teams shift week in and week out. South Carolina just played bad this week. They played terrible, and it's kind of sad that they didn't do a little bit better, than this, against the rival.
Congrats to Liberty for going 12-0.
Yeah, Liberty's a good team, but UTEP's 3-9, and you only won by 14. Not great, but obviously 12-0, very impressive. For
21 in the fourth, 21 given up in the fourth.
I know, but still, I mean, you want to hold a team like UTEP to 14-10, something like that. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Indiana, unfortunately.
Say what you want about Tom Allen, but you saw the scores in the last three games. They became Nebraska and Scott Frost. They lost to Illinois 48-45 in overtime. They lost to Michigan State 24-21, and they lost to Purdue 35-31. You think about it, Will, if they shift that score by one possession in every single one of those games, they're going 6-6, and everybody is saying that Tom Allen did a pretty good job keeping the team afloat. They made a bowl game. They'd probably be playing a 6-6 Big 12 team, or something like that, or maybe they'd be playing a MAC school and they could get a bowl win for the first time since '91. But instead, they lost excruciatingly close in their final three games. One score in every single game. 3 points, 3 points, and 4 points. And now Tom Allen's gone. Indiana football actually fired Tom Allen with $20 million left on his buyout. And he negotiated down to $15 million. So that was nice of Tom Allen. But think about it, though. That's Indiana football doing that. Indiana football usually fires coaches with $3 million left on their deal, or $2 million, $20 million. So Indiana football, are they legitimately serious now? Are they wanting to win? Are they actually going to put the resources in to win? Go 7-5 in the new Big Ten. We'll see. We'll see if they put their money where their mouth is. But they definitely put their money where their mouth is when it comes to getting rid of Tom Allen. Because that's a lot of money for Indiana to be firing a coach like that.
We'll see. We'll see if they can get Jason Candle from Toledo.
Some people are saying Dickert from Washington State. I don't know what you feel about that. You take the approach Michigan State did with John Smith, taking from Oregon State, Washington State. I mean, I would probably go with Candle.
I would go with Candle over Dickert. Dickert just collapses every year.
I agree with that. I would probably go with Candle. There was a weird rumor. I'm just gonna bring it up because it was hilarious. But there was a weird rumor from the Athletic that John Gruden was a candidate for this job. That is absolutely not going to happen. John Gruden is not getting the Indiana football job.
Maybe at a Big 12 or an SEC school, not a Big 10.
Not Indiana.
Yeah.
That just cracked me up. I had to bring it up. But yeah, we'll see who they get. And hopefully Indiana can turn this around and keep some of their players from leaving. They got some decent players in the portal right now.
Sam Houston won a game.
Man, Rick Stockstill's collapsed at Middle Tennessee State. I wonder how much longer he'll be there. I haven't checked to see if, obviously anything's been made with him. I'll check real quick. But Rick Stockstill, he's been there a long time, but their last few seasons have not been good.
UConn beat UMass in the.
Yep, they fired him. Will, they actually did. Middle Tennessee State fires Rick Stockstill after 18 seasons. He won 113 and 111 in 18 seasons. And about 4 or 5 years ago, that record was much better.
Yeah.
He really collapsed down the stretch of his tenure. I had a feeling, I didn't know because I tried to keep up with everything, but yeah, it's hard to keep up with literally every school. But yeah, he got fired. Rick Stockstill's gone.
Yeah. The Fighting Jim Morris beat the Fighting Don Browns in the.
I feel like UConn could have been better than 3-9.
Yeah.
I didn't watch really any of their games, but you remember the NC State game. You remember the Boston College games. Like, they were close. And a couple of these games, they could have been decent. I just think that they couldn't close out wins like they did last year.
Yeah. Almost beat Utah State.
Yeah, they were very close. I mean, when you look at a team's record, like Indiana, again, just real quick to talk about them one more time. Penn State, they almost beat. Louisville, they almost beat. The last 3 games, they almost beat. If they win those games, think about it. They're 8-4. Literally 8-4 if you win all those close games. Obviously, it's not realistic Indiana's going to do that, but they were in every one of those games. Yeah. They were in all the last 3 games. They almost beat Penn State, almost beat Louisville, but it doesn't matter. Almost winning means nothing. You have to win the games. UConn was close to being a 7-5 team. They didn't win the games. So they're 3-9. But I think they were better than the record.
Yeah. Duke beat Pitt.
Yeah, if this was at Pitt, it maybe could have been interesting, but Duke really collapsed down the stretch without Riley Leonard. He was their offense. And, man, for Duke fans, this stinks. They couldn't be like Kentucky. They could not retain their coach. Kentucky kept Stoops. Duke couldn't keep Elko. He's gone. He's now with Texas A&M. What do you think about that hire real quick?
Is Elko really that much better than Stoops? Like, everyone was like, no, when they're like first said Stoops. And I think they're gonna hire Stoops if they're gonna look at, okay, how does our social media react? Nope, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, but I mean, how much better was the reception here? I mean, the only reason it might have been better is because he was their defensive coordinator from 2018 to 2021, and he did a pretty good job. But he's only been a head coach for 2 years. Like, when they got Jimbo, he won a title. Whether people want to say it was all Winston and Fisher didn't do anything, or whatever, he won a title. I mean, he had success, and he was one of the most sought-after coaches at the time. Mike Elko is a 2-year head coach. He's 16-9 as a head coach. And A&M's expectations are clearly better than 8-4. Because if they're not happy with 8-4, if they were happy with it, they would have kept Jimbo. They wouldn't have fired him. But they're not happy with 8-4. So if they're not happy with it, are they sure that Mike Elko is going to do better than that? I made a video on it earlier, and I said, I don't know, because we don't know what Elko can do. He didn't have the resources at Duke, and he'll have the resources at A&M. But with Texas, Oklahoma joining, A&M has a lot of competition for wins. And can Elko lead the program? I don't know. I think it's a decent hire, but I just feel like if you're going to fire Jimbo for $75 million, you have to get a home run. You had to bring in the big fish, the big name, and I just think they didn't do that here. Even if Elko works out. If he works out, I'm happy for Elko and A&M, but it's a risky hire in the fact that he has not been a head coach for very long, and he's coming from a smaller school.
We'll see. Elko's first game is going to be against Notre Dame, so hopefully
man, if they lose, the uproar is going to start. Elko fired. He's not getting it done. He's worse than Jimbo. We're below 500. Yeah, you're 0-1. It's unbelievable. The A&M saga will never end.
Yeah.
But it might not ever be as crazy again like that $75 million buyout.
Mm-hmm.
People will be talking about that for decades to come until some buyout surpasses it.
UCF is bowl eligible.
Yeah, the only one of the new teams in the Big 12 to get it done. UCF was able, coming from the American Conference, to get to 6 wins. Houston couldn't do it. BYU couldn't do it. Cincinnati couldn't do it. So I don't know if that's a testament to Malzahn. I don't know if it's a testament to, just the other teams at the bottom of the Big 12 are so bad that they were able to get to 6 wins. But
I think that might have been a hit.
Yeah, I know. That's why I threw that out there. But
they did beat Oklahoma State, though.
Yeah, 45-3. 45-3, their best performance of the season, followed by the close loss to Oklahoma. But yeah, I guess it's impressive for the Knights. And Plumlee, he was out some too. If he had been healthy all year, I think they could have been a little better.
It'll be interesting to see if they take out BC, like if they would really put it to BC, or it would be a close game.
If Rice Plumlee's playing, they'll beat BC.
SMU gonna be taking on Toledo in the championship game.
No mercy on Navy. Absolutely no mercy. They could have put 80 on them, man. I mean, look at the first half. 52 points, just destruction. And then they just, tapered off at the end, just letting the game go by. But yeah, very impressive performance from the SMU. Especially because they lost Tanner Mordecai. I mean, Tanner Mordecai leaves, and you're wondering, is SMU really going to still have success? But their quarterback, Preston Stone's, had a great season as well.
Troy, once again, doing really well in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, easy win over Southern Miss.
Yeah.
Kent State. What a game for Northern Illinois to get the bowl eligibility. Yeah. I mean, you should have beat Kent State by more, though. Very unimpressive. This is Kent State, Northern Illinois, but congrats on the bowl. But, man, ugly to give up 27 points to probably, arguably, the worst Power 5 team. Or not Power 5, but Group of 5 team. They're bad.
Miami of Ohio making it to the MAC championship.
Yeah, what happened, though, man? Barely beating Ball State, 4-8 Ball State. But, I mean, a win is a win. I would have thought Miami of Ohio would have won by more.
Rice is going to bowl eligibility.
Yeah, and it stinks that J.P. Daniels is not even playing at QB anymore.
Yeah.
Stinks for him, but very good for Rice that their backup quarterback was able to keep the ship afloat and they got it to a bowl.
Yeah.
Food got to a bowl. And it's legitimate this time, not that APR score 5 and 7 stuff. It's legit.
Yeah. Syracuse is able to make a bowl.
Somebody from the ACC had to make a bowl. And out of the 4, I've grouped them all year. Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and Boston College. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, you passed my seal of approval. You are worthy. Virginia Tech would have been better than 6-6 with drones all year. Georgia Tech, Haynes King's had his moments. They've looked pretty. The Bowling Green loss is unacceptable, but I give you a pass because you had some decent performances. Syracuse, obviously, they're not good at all, and I still don't think they're barely worthy. They're pretty bad, but Garrett Schrader getting injured again, that hurt Syracuse. If Garrett Schrader was healthy all year, they maybe could have been a bit better. Boston College, absolutely abysmal, but Syracuse and BC are below Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. Those two teams are better.
ECU, man.
I have to say one more thing. It just came to my mind. Do you think Syracuse would have won with Dino Babers?
Good question. Good question. No.
No, they'd have won it against Wake, gone 5 and 7, and then he would have been fired. So luckily for Syracuse, they made a bowl game because they made the move.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dino Babers. You just couldn't get wins.
Unfortunately, ECU couldn't finish their season off with a win.
You talk about a fall from grace. Losing 3 players. Keaton Mitchell, CJ Johnson, Holt Nailers. That was a great trio on offense. They lost a couple defenders as well. And this team went from respectable 7-5, decent, to this 2-10. And their highlight is they kept it close against Tulane. 13-10. And if Holton Ahlers was in there for one drive, they'd have beat Tulane. One drive. But ECU, they need to find some offense. They need
They
some
need a
players
new
to get in the
offensive
portal.
coordinator for sure.
Yes. I think they did fire Mike Houston, the coach for ECU. He's got a lot of work to do.
That's good. Who did UAB lose to? Oh, North Texas. Okay.
That was a high-scoring game, 45-42. Neither team made it to a bowl, though. North Texas usually is always like 6-6, 7-5, but not this year. Couldn't get it done.
Old Dominion going to a bowl. A lot of people expected them to tank, so.
Yeah, Old Dominion, I mean, obviously they've beaten Virginia Tech a couple times in the last few years. They've had their moments. They're decent, and, I mean, good for them. I mean, neither team here is great, but, pulling out a win. I mean, look, and it was all in the fourth. I mean, the comeback kids, they were down big, 21-7, and then they came back in the fourth quarter, got the win. So.
Grant Wilson, the quarterback for ODU, went to my high school, so that's cool.
Congrats to Will's guy that he knows from high school. Yeah. Very impressive.
Kind of a jerk, but you know what? Good.
God that he knows. I think my line was a little better. Good for Old Dominion and guy that Will knows.
Western Kentucky passing their way to a win.
Yeah, that's what they do. Austin Reed kept up with Bailey Zappi did. Lots of yards, lots of passing touchdowns. Obviously, they were better with Zappi, but still had a decent year. Ugly from Utah. Ugly
without Shedeur.
Man, 23-17. I mean, a win's a win. I say it all the time, but I don't know because I didn't watch any of this game because I think it was on the Pac-12 Network. Yeah. But Utah, rest in peace to the Pac-12 Network and the Pac. But Utah, I mean, they beat Arizona State 55-3. I mean, you would have thought they'd have beaten Colorado very similarly with that defense. Colorado wasn't even bowl eligible, so there was no reason for them to, play a tough game. But, yeah, Utah, just not a great performance, but they did win. But, yeah, I would have thought they'd have won this one by, at least 21 plus.
Mm-hmm. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns making a bowl.
Yeah, I mean, beat UL Monroe. We talk about Kent State being horrible, but it looks like UL Monroe is pretty bad as well. Yeah. But, yeah, without Billy Napier, Lafayette finding a way.
Fall from grace with that since that Alabama win.
Yeah, way back in 07.
I think they beat Arkansas 8 years ago, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely when Arkansas was at their lowest.
UNLV still making it in.
See, and that's the thing. San Jose State beat UNLV. I understand that San Jose 7-5, UNLV's 9-3, but with all these teams being 6-2, wouldn't San Jose get in because they beat UNLV? Tiebreaker. So should it have been San Jose and Boise?
That
doesn't make sense. To me, that doesn't make any sense. That's why they did it by computer metrics. Because if you're going off head-to-head, San Jose State is in, and Boise's in. It would not have been UNLV, even though the record, because the out-of-conference record shouldn't matter. But obviously how they did it with the computers, UNLV's statistics were better. They went with win-loss and probably, offensive stats. But I don't think that's fair to San Jose. They beat UNLV, and since they beat them, they should be in the champ game.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with that. Mountain West got to fix that rule.
Yeah.
With computer stuff. That's not cool.
Yeah.
But UNLV had a great year. It's cool that they're in the champ game. But San Jose State, good win, very good win for them. They didn't look good early on. They played better down the stretch.
No bowl for Illinois.
Me and you both picked the Illini, and they lost 45-43. Who would have thought this game would have been 45-43? What happened with Illinois? They played Indiana in a 48-45 game. And now they play this 45-43 game with Northwest. Their defense is non-existent now. They have no defense.
Maybe their quarterback Paddock's good. Their quarterback. Gosh, this guy. I looked at him. This guy looks like he's 35. Jeez.
So he looks older than Stetson Bennett by far. Even though Stetson Bennett was the oldest guy in college football last year. Man, that's funny.
Illinois.
I don't know what happened to their defense, though. I mean, you remember last year, Illinois 9-6 against Iowa. I know they lost, Witherspoon and Brown to the draft, but still, I mean, not good performances by their defense lately. And Northwestern finding a way to win and get to 7 wins. We'll have to see how they do in the new Big Ten, though. It's going to be interesting. Can David Brown keep this up, in the new Big Ten with all the teams joining? But very impressive that they got 7 wins.
How old are you? I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know.
I can try to look real quick.
He was a 2-star. Good for him. But okay, Wisconsin beating Minnesota to get the axe.
I told you, man. I told you to go with Wisconsin. You went with Ski-U-Man, man. The boat is not rolling down the river like it used to. What is going on with Flex program? They're usually consistent like Iowa. They're like this. Iowa's here. Minnesota's like right below.
Yeah.
But this year, not at all. Wisconsin has had some rough games this year, including the Indiana loss. But Minnesota played an abysmal game. Their offense, I said last week, it's like Iowa's, and you don't want to be Iowa, especially when your defense.
Well, Jeffrey, they because of the rule, they're going to a bowl game because of the academic score. So we're going to have to see that offense again.
They actually are going to a bowl?
Yes.
What? What is deserving about this team? The APR score should not be what matters. And what matters is how you look. There's got to be a better 5-7 team out there than Minnesota. Who give me a 5-7 football team, Will? Somebody, anybody that's better than Minnesota. Man, you got to be kidding me. Absolutely terrible. Oh, man. That's unreal. That is absolutely unreal.
APR is so dumb. I don't get it either.
But my thing is, I don't understand why you would use a metric that's related to your academics when what should matter is your on-the-field play. How you look. Like if I was, picking bowls, I'd be like, that's the best-looking 5-7 team there is. Look at what they've done, and they're way better than those academic guys over there. I mean, academics are important. I get it. You want to reward.
Yeah.
The program that has great academics. I'm not saying that. I mean, that's great. But, I mean, you can argue Illinois has been better than Minnesota.
I think TCU has. Maybe.
Yeah, TCU's another, decent example. I mean, there's got to be some other 5-7 programs, like I said, that, are more deserving. Again, nothing against the APR score. I know why you do it. Academics are great, and you're rewarded, but I don't think Minnesota's the team that should be getting a bowl game at 5-7. I really don't.
Florida's probably better.
Yeah, if Florida would not opt out, if they would not have any opt-outs and they would play in the bowl game, yeah, Florida's better for sure than Minnesota.
Washington State's been playing better recently.
Yeah, Washington State, TCU, Illinois. Yeah, there's some examples for sure of teams that, could be in a bowl game instead. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't know Minnesota was getting in. Thanks for that update, Will.
I knew as soon as you're talking to them now, I couldn't wait to say it.
Oh, man. See, you set me up. You knew it. You knew I didn't know.
Yeah.
You knew I didn't know, and you coming in for the kill, telling me I'm going to get Jeffrey riled up. Yeah, you got me a little riled up. I kept it contained, though. We're good.
Yeah.
Minnesota, it is what it is. Win the bowl game. Prove your worth. Prove your worth.
Well, Maryland, Rutgers, they're both going to bowl games, but Maryland put it
I don't know.
together.
Something told me to pick Maryland. They're like the quintessential 7-5 team.
Yeah.
Like literally every year they start well, they go 4-0, and then they collapse, and then they look like garbage, and then they go out there at the end of the year and they win another game to make. Hey, we went 7-5. We're pretty decent. That's Maryland. Like I don't know. Something gave me that twinge. You get that feeling, and I just didn't buy Rutgers. I don't know. I thought Tua's brother would have a good game. He did, and it's actually incredible. For Talia Tagovailoa, actually how many yards he's passed for in his Maryland career. It's actually impressive. He's thrown for a lot of yards. They've never been fantastic or anything. Like I said, they usually lose some games they should win. And Maryland could have been better than this. They could have been maybe 9-3, but I don't know. This was an impressive win. I just didn't trust Rutgers to win.
Yeah, he's the all-time leading passer in Big Ten history.
There you go. I knew it was in Maryland history, but Big Ten history as well.
Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
impressive. I mean, absolutely impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And on a average team.
Mm-hmm. App State went 8-4. Good for App State.
Yeah, App State, I mean, they had a, I wouldn't say subpar year, but like usually they're a bit better than this. So it's just kind of like they're coasting 8-4, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Good win. Georgia Southern making a bowl still.
JMU making a bowl now. Now they're gonna make a bowl.
They are.
Yeah.
So they actually are granting James Madison a bowl. See, I didn't even see this either. Will is in the know. He knows what's going on, right? So for real, they actually are.
I'm gonna have to confirm it, but yeah.
Because I didn't see that. I did not look. I've been like paying attention to the coaching firings and everything that's going on with that. There's a lot of coaching news going on. Frank Reich fired today.
Yeah. Okay. So they were given an APR slot.
What is up with this APR?
So they bypassed the APR and gave Jacksonville State and James Madison a bowl.
Okay. So James Madison, Jacksonville State, along with 5 and 7. How did I miss this? It had to have been trending on Twitter. I did not see this.
Can you read? Wait, who are the rest of the 5 and 7 teams that got it? Is it just Minnesota?
It just says, according to this article right here, I'll pull it up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If hopefully we don't break StreamYard by having all these tabs, but right there it says FBS newcomers James Madison and Jacksonville State, along with 5 and 7 Minnesota, get the last 3 bowl slots.
Okay, yeah.
So there you go. I mean, I'm happy for James Madison, but I don't really understand why James Madison, had to get in through that. I like I just said when you're off, I don't know why James Madison had to get in through that. I mean, they shouldn't have gotten in just because they were good. I know the rule when you're transitioning over to the FBS, but I mean, realistically though, I just don't agree that you had to use the APR score just to get them in.
Wow.
Should have been in anyway.
Yeah.
And Coastal, that was a terrible performance. Worst loss of the season for them by far. On senior day, too.
It's a sad senior day. Marshall getting in.
Man, for Buckeye Mike. Marshall, that Cam Fancher, Rashid Ali's always talking on the ground. Marshall finding away Charles Huff, head coach, doing decent things there. I've even seen him as a candidate for the Indiana job. I think it's Candle. If you're going to go from a group of 5 coach, it's got to be Candle. But, yeah, Marshall having a decent year. I mean, they kind of – I would say they underperformed compared to what people thought. Most people probably thought they'd go 8-4, but a bowl's a bowl, 6-6. And they didn't have to get into that APR stuff.
New Mexico State going to be facing Liberty in the CUSA championship. That'll be
New Mexico State not having a letdown after the big win over Auburn. A lot of teams like this, when they have a big win like that, they go out there the next game and they struggle and lose. So good for them. They got the win.
Yeah,
against a solid Jacksonville State team.
West Virginia able to come back late and won.
Why though? You should have blown them out. I mean, Neil Brown, these are brownie points. No pun intended for Neil Brown. These are brownie points for West Virginia. You got to win these games by a substantial amount. I mean, you got to go out there and beat Baylor by 21 and say, hey, I'm here for the long haul. You're keeping me around until, I'm ready to move on or whatever, or I'll stay forever. Even performances like this, you got the win, but it's not impressive. And just this was not a great performance from West Virginia. Needed to win by more to look more impressive. And Baylor had no reason to play well. They're 3-9. Jack says he's glad Aranda's staying. Me too, but if he has another bad year, he's probably done. Jack says if New Mexico State gets an 11-win season, it will be the first time since 1960. So that will be impressive. But, yeah, I was disappointed in West Virginia barely winning this one.
Texas State, I mean, they went 7-5. I thought they would do better after beating Baylor, but they didn't do that much better.
Yeah. Well, Baylor ended up being that bad. So, but still a good win for them. South Alabama with Kane Womack, the former Indiana defensive coordinator, didn't have as good of a year.
No,
They went like 10-2 last year, something like that. They went 6-6 this year. Still, I mean, making a bowl game, but yeah, I was a little disappointed in them this year.
Jason Bean coming back and putting on a show against Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's what you do. West Virginia, take pointers from Kansas right there. Blow them out. I think Baylor's a bit better than Cincinnati, but Kansas did a really good job in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive.
South Florida making a bowl for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I mean, decent. I mean, people talk about, oh, Alabama played terrible and they kept it close. Alabama with Milroe would have won by a lot more. I think, Saban was just playing around with the quarterback, seeing what he had. But obviously, Milroe was the guy. But, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have expected South Florida to make a bowl this year. So, again, very impressive. In Charlotte's, they've fallen off. They were decent a couple years ago. They've fallen off.
Man, Nevada stinks.
Yeah. Yeah, we both said if Wyoming lost this game on the road, that would be like one of the ugliest losses of the year. They took care of it. Even Wyoming, a team that can't win on the road, they won on the road in emphatic fashion. Nevada, not even close. They missed Carson Strong, I'll tell you that. They were really good when he was there.
Cal making a bowl.
This game right here is hilarious. Good for Justin Wilcox. You thought you needed the Auburn win to get there, but nope, you did not. You just needed UCLA to drop the ball after beating USC. After beating USC, UCLA does this. Unbelievable, 33-7. It's not that you just lose. They got destroyed. So, again, good for Wilcox. And Dante Moore returned 2 for UCLA, and it didn't matter.
UCLA fans are not happy that it looks like Chip Kelly's coming back. They wanted him out.
I thought he was gone after this one. I thought when they beat USC, I'm like, nah, he's good. And then I'm like, when they lose this game, I'm like, nah, he's not good. But now he's still there right now. That would be crazy if he is retained. Unbelievable. After this loss, shouldn't have lost to Cal. 33-7.
Especially by this much. Fresno State, what happened?
They collapsed. Mikey Keene, he returned in this game, but he did not look like himself pre-injury, so I think that was part of the problem. They had a kind of a myriad of quarterbacks running through there once he got injured that first time. And, yeah, I mean, if he stayed healthy, I think they would have won this game. But it's good for San Diego State, even though their coach retired. Brady Hoke did retire. He's done after this season, which he's
Colorado State blew it. You could have won. You could have kept Minnesota out of a bowl game, but you couldn't beat Hawaii.
Unbelievable. Colorado State blew it, and we had to have that APR score. That's why you need enough 6-win teams, and you wouldn't have this problem. They got so many bowls now. I mean, so many teams, half their team opts out, so you might as well just not even play in the bowl, man. Then you have a bunch of 3-9 teams, and they're like Indiana that wants to play in the bowl game. Be hilarious. Like, you just knock out all the, the teams like Florida and all the opt-outs. They don't want to play. Just bring Indiana in there. You'll have a bunch of Indianas and Purdue's in bowl games. That's funny. I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? That's crazy that Colorado State blew their chance. And Hawaii has not had a good year. Hawaii is not what they were with Cole McDonald and some of the other quarterbacks they've had in the past when they were winning like 9 games. So not a good loss for the Rams. Hummus Heroes here. Appreciate you being here, Hummus Hero.
Yeah. Disappointing way to end the season for Colorado State. All right. If they would have beaten Colorado, if they would have been able to win that game, they would have gotten in. But.
Crazy. And we're down to 10 games. 10 games before the bowls and the playoffs begin. You got the conference championship game starting on Friday in Conference USA. New Mexico State Liberty. And Liberty is favored by 10 points. They are not backing the bettors are not backing the team that beat Auburn. That's kind of shocking. It's not a bit of a closer spread, especially because Liberty has had a couple performances this year where they did not look that good, but they were able to win. I guess just being undefeated gives bettors confidence. But I will say the quarterback for New Mexico State, Diego Pavia, he's underrated. He's a great dual threat quarterback. I understand that they're in a small, league, but he is a really good runner, and he's a pretty good passer as well. Liberty's quarterback, Cade Salters, is solid also, and they got a great running back, Cooley, with 1,200 yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns. New Mexico State's riding high. after the win over Auburn. And there's a possibility if they can keep up that momentum that they can get this win and be able to spoil Liberty's undefeated season. And it's hard to go undefeated. It is very hard to go undefeated, as a team, especially like a group of 5 team. I know you're playing smaller competition, so you would think it's easier, but these teams, there's not much that separates. And Liberty's not that much more talented than New Mexico State, even though they probably have a couple more pieces that are better. But I could definitely see New Mexico State, if they play like they did against Auburn, pulling it off. But I do think that they'll play more like they did against Jacksonville State. I don't think New Mexico State will play as well as they did against Auburn. Liberty, they want to stay undefeated, possibly get the Cotton Bowl slot if things break their way. I'll go with Liberty to beat New Mexico State 31-28, but I'll have New Mexico State covering the spread.
Now, the two teams did play before in Lynchburg, and it was a 33-17 Liberty win. I just wish this was a neutral site, man. I mean, I get it. Liberty had a better record, but I do wish these games, all these conference championship games, were at a neutral site. It's unfortunate.
That's a great point, by the way, Will, because I did see that at Lynchburg, Virginia. I don't know why some of these smaller, conferences do that, where you play on your home field as the better, record team. I like you. I believe they should have them playing on neutral sites like every other conference. Or if you're going to have it like where the smaller ones play on their own field, you have the bigger conferences playing where the better record team is on their own field. I would rather them all be on neutral, but you have to have it being even continuity. It doesn't make any sense if some conferences are playing on neutral and then some of them are not. But yeah, that's a good point that Liberty beat them already this year, but I think New Mexico State's playing better than they were then.
Yeah. Because they lost to Hawaii as well, New Mexico State did, before going on this long winning streak that they're on now. But I'm going to go with Liberty to win 31-24. I think that they'll get a late touchdown and win it late. But I'm hoping it'll be a good game, even though I don't get CBS Sportsnet, so I'll have to watch on YouTube. But
yeah, it should be a pretty solid game, especially because of the fact that, you talk about two teams that have had good years, Liberty being undefeated, New Mexico State having the win over Auburn, so they have that notoriety. But it's going to be overshadowed big time by the game we're about to be talking about. And it's probably one of those games that people will turn it on until the Oregon-Washington game comes on. And then maybe if it's close, they'll flip it back over just to see what happens at the end before finishing up Oregon-Washington. But it will be a solid game that I will definitely be keeping my eye on. Yeah, Homie's here saying Liberty a chance to get the New Year's Six spot, or Toledo get it if Tulane loses. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work, how the rankings are going to shake out. Definitely Liberty has a chance, especially if they go undefeated. They have a chance, but I don't know what the committee's going to do.
I mean, the problem is SMU's 24th, I believe. Toledo's 23rd, and Tulane's 22nd. So I don't know if they can get in over SMU. If it's a dominant victory, maybe. But
definitely the committee's going to take more of the American teams, into account that they play a bit tougher of a schedule than in Conference USA. The American has more notoriety, even though obviously they lost the teams that they did to the Big 12. It's still a better conference. So, yeah, it's going to be hard for Liberty. I mean, I think they should deserve a look if they win in this game, but I don't know how that's going to work out. It could go a variety of different ways depending on the results.
But anyways, the big game, probably the biggest game of the week, well, alongside another game we'll be talking about, is Oregon and Washington, with Oregon as a 9.5-point favorite in Vegas.
It's hilarious. Washington's the undefeated team. Oregon's the team with one loss, but nope, Oregon is favored by almost 10 points. No respect for the Huskies at all whatsoever. And I know people laugh about it because of the fact that people say it's the Vegas odds, they're doing the computer system. So a computer doesn't respect, a team or another team. They're just going off data. I think Mark Rogers mentioned that as well. He's the one that said it's like the computer doesn't show respect to anybody. It's just going off what the data spits into it. So obviously the data is liking how well Oregon's looked, how dominant Oregon's been lately, whereas Washington has not been dominant. Washington has struggled in their last few games. They've been winning, and that's all that matters. But they have not been, dominant in any of their wins. They've struggled. certain, weather elements, especially that Oregon State game, played a factor. But Oregon's definitely like the better team. Bo Nix's stats are ridiculous. 37 touchdowns and 2 picks, almost 4,000 passing yards, in addition to what Bucky Irving's doing. Troy Franklin's stats are insane. They've got a great offense. Their rushing attack's great. Their passing attack's great. Their defense is better than Washington's. It's just, it so happens that Washington was able to pull out that win against Oregon at home, but now it's in a neutral site. Oregon's looked a lot better. They're looking for blood. They're playing a lot better than Washington right now, but I'm going to let you pick first, Will, before I give my pick.
If Dan Lang doesn't do anything dumb during the game, like he did last time, Ducks should win. I'll go for a quacking impressive victory. I'll go 38. I'll go 45-24. Ducks win the pack.
Ooh. You're going with a mini blowout there. Oregon showing their dominance. Ducks crashing down on the Dogs. I don't know. This game, to me, is going to be close. I know Oregon's looked a lot better, but Washington hasn't played this entire season to throw it all away with a loss. And I'm going to hate it for Washington because if they lose, they're almost mathematically eliminated from the college football playoff. Almost. I mean, they could still get in, obviously, if other teams lose. It's possible. But if they do not get a loss from Florida State to Louisville, if Washington doesn't have Texas and Alabama, probably lose as well, there's a shot that Washington, will not make it. And if those teams lose, Washington they can get in. They have a shot to get in. But if one of those teams wins, Washington will be on the outside looking in. That's the point. So Washington has to win to get in. If they lose, they're not completely done, but they're going to need other results to happen for them to have a chance. And trust me, if Washington does lose, they're going to have a long Saturday watching these results and hoping and praying that Florida State, Alabama, some of those teams go down. So Washington is, again, a very good team. Michael Penix Jr., he's played up to the potential that I thought he would and then some when he transferred from Indiana. I knew he had it in him. Obviously, at Indiana, he didn't have a good O-line. He was always getting banged up, but he's been so impressive, so proud of what he's done. And if he beats Oregon again, he'll have a shot at the Heisman, even though, Bo Nix's stats are still going to be better. But beating him twice, he would have a chance. I think Washington could win. And I know that a lot of people say that when you pick a team, you don't want to say that the other team has a chance to win. But Washington can win because that passing attack is dangerous. And Penix, if he can regain that confidence that he showed in that first game, definitely there is a chance that the Huskies can pull it off. And it's on a neutral site, so there's going to be fans for both teams. But Oregon's looked so good lately. Bo Nix has been so incredible with the stats he's putting up. Their offense is playing ridiculous. Their defense is better than Washington's. Unless Michael Penix throws for over 400 yards, I have a hard time seeing the Huskies pulling it out. I'm going to go with Oregon. Like you said, Will, as long as Dan Lanning doesn't do anything insane and blow it, to win over Washington 38-35. And then Oregon more likely should be in the college football playoff. There will be no guarantee, there's no guarantees of anything, but they'll be in. They'll win. They'll be in the playoff if they win. Washington probably, like I said, will be out unless things break their way. It's going to be a great game. It's probably the game everybody's looking forward to the most, besides maybe another game, like you said, Will. I cannot wait for this matchup on Friday night, but I think Oregon will edge them out because Oregon's just looked a little bit better than Washington lately. Actually, a lot better, to be frank.
Yeah, Ducks should win, but who knows what could happen. It's conference championship weekend.
And it'd be great if both teams can get in the playoff because they're both deserving. I mean, Washington, they haven't looked as good. They've had a great year. Anything can happen. But the playoff race, whatever happens, is going to be wild, and people definitely going to be tuning in on Selection Sunday.
Do you think it'll help Oregon at all that they're getting that extra day of rest after playing on Friday on rivalry week?
Maybe. I mean, the thing is technically they played the harder opponent, even though they made easy work of them. Washington played a worse team, even though technically Washington State beat Oregon State, but still, technically Oregon State's the better team. But I mean, it probably plays a little bit of a role. I mean, extra day does make a difference because Oregon, after they beat Oregon State, was already studying up on Washington, even though they've already played each other, so they should know each other pretty well. But yeah, I think it helps a little bit. I don't know how substantial of a difference it actually makes, but I think it does help a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We have Michigan man Jason here, pumping his chest out after winning the Big Ten championship. Congrats. The Big Ten East. Okay, they're gonna win the Big Ten championship, but winning the Big Ten East. So
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. That's why, again, the divisions are going away. Had to get rid of the divisions because it's not even a contest, not even close.
And we have the Big 12 championship game. Will Texas blow it again against Oklahoma State?
The thing is, it's funny because of the fact that you would argue that Texas, it's more important if they show up, if Texas plays well. Because Texas has a propensity to play poorly at times. We saw the TCU game. We saw the Kansas State game. We saw the Iowa State game where they struggled. The Houston game as well. Texas has had multiple performances this year where they could have lost, and they would be out of the playoff conversation. Yes, they beat Bama. That was a huge win on the road. Milroe was not being used to his fullest potential at the time, but still, all credit to Texas for getting that win. They lost to Oklahoma, but other than that, they'll have the one loss. But I would argue, Will, that it is more important how Oklahoma State plays. It's not how Texas plays, because they should at least score 30. More than likely. They'll get 31, 35. Even if they have kind of an average day, they'll probably get that many points. But what Oklahoma State team are we going to get? Are we going to get the team that went out there and beat Oklahoma? Or are we going to get the team that lost to UCF 45-3? The team early in the year that lost to South Alabama. The team that just barely beat BYU, a team that's not making a bowl game. That's the key. Oklahoma State is fickle. Sometimes they play very well and they look like a top 15 team, and then other times they don't. Ollie Gordon, all credit to him, because he's been carrying that team. It's not that Bowman's playing bad all around. He's had moments of great football, but you see his touchdown to pick ratio, 10 touchdowns, 11 picks, which I think is what causes the inconsistencies for the Cowboys, because some of his performances this year have not been that great, but when he plays well, the team can be dangerous. And I think Oklahoma State's going to play hard because they're going to want to play spoiler. You know they want to play spoiler, beat the Longhorns on their way out before they go to the SEC. So I expect the Cowboys to play an extremely tight game with Texas, even though they are a 14.5-point underdog. But I'm going to go with Texas to beat Oklahoma State 35-31. I almost didn't pick them. I really did, because Texas, again, has blown so many big games in the past. And the fact that they're this close to winning the Big 12 and possibly being able to go to the playoff if teams ahead of them lose, there's a shot they throw it away. Ewers can be inconsistent. The team can be inconsistent. But they look like they're on a mission beating Texas Tech the way they did. And Oklahoma State is so inconsistent, even more than Texas is. And Bowman might have a couple too many mistakes. Ollie Gordon on the ground is going to be dangerous. But Texas's D-line might be able to contain him more than other teams have. I'm going to go with Texas to win a tight one, 35-31.
Texas, they look like they're actually doing it. They look like they're going to do it. But there's that part of me that I'm like, okay, they're going to Texas it. But I will pick, I don't know, man. Texas looks impressive. I'll go Texas 42-31 over Oklahoma State. I do think that will get it done.
Imagine, Will, if Texas had to beat Texas Tech by like 3. If it was like a 35-32 type of game, something like that, everybody would be going Cowboys right now. It'd be like everyone's upset pick of the week. But since they blew out Tech, that's giving people the confidence, just enough that the Longhorns won't Texas it up, as you said.
Just enough. Yeah, I'll go for the Longhorns. I think they'll make the playoff. I think they'll get in.
Well, I mean, they could still not get in if they win, because if you think about the scenarios, if Alabama beats Georgia, that does not help Texas. I know some people say it would because they got the win over them, but Alabama beating Georgia would be a more impressive win than Texas's win over Alabama. I know that sounds insane, but it would.
That would be so messed. That would be ridiculous.
Alabama would probably pass them. You don't think they would?
Way.
If Alabama beat Georgia, they're not passing Texas.
Do that. No friggin' way, man. People would freak the heck out.
So you're telling me that if it came down to Texas and Alabama,
it should be head to head. It should be head to head.
But Alabama's got the better win.
But they
because
freaking
they would
lost
be
to
beating a
Texas.
team
They
that has
freaking
not lost
lost.
in 3
They
years.
lost to Texas head to head. They lost. We've seen it play out before. We should go by that.
You knew you were gonna rile me up with that APR score. I knew I would rile you up if I brought this up. Man, I hope it happens. I hope Texas and Alabama, I hope both of them come down to the last playoff spot. Because if they do, oh my goodness, it's going to be an uproar either way. Because Alabama fans are going to be like, we beat Georgia. No team's beat them in 3 years, and you're going to leave us out? How could you do that? And then if Texas gets left out, be like, we beat them head to head. How could you do that? It's going to be unreal. The meltdown would be unreal on either side if that happened. We'll see. You could be right, Will. I'm not saying the head-to-head doesn't matter. And if Texas gets in, I'm happy for Texas. I really am. But if Bama beats Georgia and it comes down to those two teams, Alabama has to be considered because of that win. Would be so impressive beating Georgia. But we'll see. Maybe the scenario won't even happen. Bama could lose. Texas could lose. Might not even happen. Both teams could lose. But if that scenario happened, I would be interested to see what the committee would do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Can I acknowledge the chat?
If Alabama will Ohio State is a real argument to be above Texas, says almost 0. Oh, man. I don't know about that, though, because Texas would have a Big 12 championship. Ohio State would not have anything.
I still think Alabama's a better team than Penn State.
Hamasiro said that devalues Texas's win over Bama, equaling with Ohio State over Penn State, and then Texas had no other win like Notre Dame. That and their loss would be worse. Well, I mean, Texas, though, if Bama lost a close one to Georgia, I would still think the committee would value Bama over Penn State. I don't know. I mean, you could be right, Hamasiro. If you're obviously you're an Ohio State fan, just root for Texas and Bama to lose. Just root for them all to go down. Florida State to go down. Then you can get in.
I'll say this about the whole Kirk Ferentz being a crybaby. I mean, I think Kirk cried because he knows like this is his last 2 games he's ever going to coach with his son, including the bowl game. So I think that to me is a little bit. I'll understand that he's crying, but that's more. I think it's more fair to cry over that than crying over not having your assistant.
All he had to do, though, Will, was leave his son as the offensive line coach. Then he could have coached with his son for many more years, and you could have had a good offensive coordinator, and this wouldn't have had to happen like this. I mean, it doesn't make any sense why he ever was hired, promoted to the OC job. He was a pretty good tight end / O-line coach. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even see that either. I didn't see Kirk Ferentz crying. I didn't even see some of the stuff I missed.
Yeah, I saw him cry after the Nebraska game. I'm so happy for our seniors.
Yeah, nobody cares that much about their seniors. Well, maybe some coaches. I don't know. But, man, that's funny. That is kind of funny. But, yeah, you're right, Will. If it's about his son, I get it.
Yeah, I get it more than I get it without having your head coach on the sideline. Miami and Toledo. This will be a good game, hopefully, on ESPN.
Yeah, it probably will be a fairly close game because when you look at a team like Toledo, Jason Candle, if the rumors are legit that he possibly is in contention for the Indiana job, you've seen stuff like this before where the team can kind of struggle a bit if the coach is kind of sidetracked. Maybe if he's a legitimate candidate for the Indiana job. If he's not, then that's not going to play a role. But it could. Plus, even though Toledo went undefeated in the MAC, and obviously only lost to Illinois in week 1, their talent advantage is not massive. It's not like Toledo is just way better of a team than Miami, Ohio, and they've got way better players. It's not like a Michigan versus Iowa thing. So Toledo, everyone thinks they're going to win. They're favored by 7.5 because, obviously they have the better record. They've won all their games in the MAC, and Jason Candle's done a great job. And their quarterback is pretty good. Finn has had a good year, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. They got a good run game. I think that their run game is going to be the key, though. If they can run the ball, at will in this game, I don't know if Miami, Ohio can keep up because Miami, Ohio is, pretty solid. Sports Talk with All says Toledo beat Miami, Ohio already. So Yeah, that's why they're undefeated. But rematches can happen, Austin. So if you talk about, when you beat a team once, it's hard to beat them twice. So Miami, Ohio, that you would use that argument to say would almost help Miami, Ohio. But yeah, you're right, Austin. They did beat them already. But I think that looking at this game, if Miami, Ohio plays great football and plays, some of their better performances here, they can get the win. But I'm going to go with Toledo to win 35-24. I do think that the Rockets will pull it out as long as Jason Candle's not distracted for any job, like in the Indiana job, and Toledo keeps playing the way they have been all year. And to Austin's point, beat Miami, Ohio again. But if Miami, Ohio wants to get revenge, I think they could keep it close. But I'm going to go with Toledo.
So, yeah, the first game Toledo did win at Oxford, Ohio, but it was close, 21-17.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing this one at a neutral site at Ford Field. I don't know. I mean, for Toledo has had some close calls, but I mean, so did Miami of Ohio in their last game. I'm not going to act like I'm a MAC expert, but I do think that the Rockets will end up winning this one. I'll go 28-24 Toledo.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here is a MAC expert. I mean, they're few and far between. Like, Michigan Moose says Toledo is the better team. I mean, they are, but by how much? When you have teams like this, there's not much difference in them. They're all very similar. One's just maybe a little bit better coached, or they have a couple better players at maybe a couple positions. That's about the only difference that there is. So Toledo, even though they're a better team, it's not by much. So I think that will keep the game fairly close. But the Rockets, like you said, should win.
UNLV, Boise State at UNLV's home field in Las Vegas.
And again, UNLV lost to San Jose State, but they gave UNLV the spot anyway. That makes absolutely no sense with all that computer stuff. But UNLV won 9 games. I mean, they've had a good year. Very impressive for Barry Odom, but still doesn't really make that much sense. Boise State, though, they're not at home because,
I can't pick
unfortunately,
them. I can't. I have to pick. I mean, I know. I'm going to let you talk. I can't pick them out of the blue turf. The weird thing is,
I get it.
This is the second day in a row that Allegiant Stadium is going to be hosting a game. I mean, they weren't planning to because the Mountain West Championship game is on its home field, but they're going to have to do Oregon, Washington, and then Boise State, UNLV the next day. So.
Yeah, it's definitely, they're going to have a lot of work to do there. Michigan Moose to San Jose State also beat Fresno State as well. So he's saying that they've, got some decent wins. Fresno State's collapsed lately.
Yeah.
If that game was played earlier in the year, it probably would not have been a win for San Jose State. But still impressive. I mean, they have an argument to be here, but it is what it is. I wish, though, like you said, Will, that they would have this game on a neutral site. Not at UNLV, but it is what it is, what these smaller conferences do. But since Boise's not at home, it is going to be hard to pick them because UNLV has had a good season, like I said. The top receiver, Wyatt, is 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. Their quarterback is thrown for 14 touchdowns, 6 picks. Whereas Boise State's quarterback, Taylor Green, is very turnover prone. But the key for Boise to win this game is Ashton Genty, their running back. 13 touchdowns, 1,100 yards on the ground. George Halani, their backup running back, is really good as well. If Boise State can slow this game down and have their running backs pounded on UNLV and make, it a 4-quarter game, wire to wire in the teens and 20s type of game, like a 24-21 type of game, Boise can win. But if UNLV gets going early and they're up 17-3, the Rebels probably will have it in the bag. It's all going to come down to Taylor Green. Can't make mistakes. Boise State has to slow the game down, get their running backs involved, and have them, like I said, rush it down UNLV's throat. It's going to be a good game, but I'm actually going to go Boise. I know they're not at home, but I'm going to go with Boise to win 28-24. I'm backing the Broncos. Andy Avalos, he's not there anymore. And Boise State looking to get back to the top of the Mountain West. I think they're going to win the Mountain West over Barry Odom's team, who dropped a game last week. I'll go with the Broncos 28-24.
Shocking development here. I mean, I know their favorite. I don't know, man. I'm gonna trust Jordan Mailata. He's had a great year, almost to 3,000 yards. I'm gonna go with the Rebels to win. I'm gonna go 34-28 UNLV. I do think a lot of Broncos fans will travel to Vegas for this one because I mean it's not like you're having to go to Laramie, so that will help Boise. But I do think that UNLV will win the Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting game. You could be right, Will. I had a pretty good week last week, picking Maryland right and Iowa right and Wisconsin right in the Big Ten. So I had the Big Ten's number last week, but I don't know if I'll have the Mountain West number because last year in the Mountain West Championship game, I picked Boise over Fresno, and Fresno won with Jake Haener because obviously Boise won the first time, but Haener was out, and then Haener got revenge on the second time around. Like, as Austin mentioned, Toledo beat Miami, Ohio already. Maybe Miami, Ohio can get revenge on Toledo. It's hard to beat a team twice. But I just think Boise, I trust the Broncos. I still think that they're probably the most talented team in the conference. They've got good players, and they didn't quit, without Avalos on the season. So I think they'll win. But you could be right, Will.
Yeah, them and Fresno are probably the two most talented. John, I would have went on, but I knew it was just going to be Iowa fans complaining. So I'm like, I didn't really. That's why I wasn't that. But I'll try to hop in the Michigan show. I know I said I would last week, but like I had family stuff going on that whole week.
Yeah, sometimes you got too much
on,
going on, man. I get it.
Yeah.
Can't call in. Appreciate you being here, John. I really do.
All right, here we go.
And here's the big one that some people will argue is the biggest game. Some will say it's Oregon, Washington, others. And you know what part of the country you're in, the Southeast. It's Georgia, Bama. For it all right here. And obviously Georgia's going to make the playoff if they lose. They're going to get in anyway. I mean, if they lost like 40-0, it would be weird, but I still think they'd get in. But
wait a minute. Come on, Pack. I was going to compare the ticket prices. $46. Oh, come on.
That's not very expensive.
I would buy that in a heartbeat if I lived close to Vegas.
I mean, look at this. $312. That shows you who cares
more about football.
They'll
get higher, too, for sure. They'll get higher for sure.
$312. Granted, it's in Georgia's backyard. And it's near Bama as well. I get that. So it's easy for them to travel. But, man, that shows you how much they care about football. $312 versus $46. That's substantially different. But, yeah, John says it just means more. He's got $2 signs. It does. It really does. This proves it right here. But Alabama. Nobody's giving Alabama a chance to win outside of Alabama fans because Georgia has been the most dominant team in college football for the last 3 seasons. They've won 29 in a row. Nobody's beaten them. They've had a couple close calls like the Ohio State game last year and the college football playoff, the Auburn game, the South Carolina game this year. Technically the Georgia Tech game if you want to be fair, but I don't think anyone really thought Georgia had any shot to lose. They struggled with Missouri the year before. So they've had moments where they've struggled, but they've always been able to win. Bama has had Georgia's number throughout the Nick Saban era. Nick Saban has dominated against the Bulldogs, and his record is still pristine. I think Georgia's only beaten him like once or twice, something like that. So Bama still has done a better job against Georgia, but when it's been between Kirby and Nick. And I think that is going to play a psychological role. Even though Georgia is the favored team and they are now the new standard of the sport. Alabama's been the standard for the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, but Georgia's been the standard the last 3 years. They've been the best team in the SEC and in college football, even over Alabama. But Alabama's still a talented team. And I know they had a horrible game against Auburn. But don't let that fool you. Look at what Auburn did. They lost to New Mexico State, and then they turned around and played the game of their life. I believe Alabama's going to show up in this game. Nick Saban is going to have them ready to go. He knows what's at stake. He knows if his team wins, there's a legitimate shot they still get in. Even if there's some pins and needles with Texas and leapfrogging the Longhorns and they get in like that, and Will would lose his mind. Or if somehow maybe enough other teams lose like Oregon or Florida State that they can both get in. You never know, because Alabama would leapfrog Ohio State. Texas would as well with 2 wins, and they could both get in. But this game's going to come down to, can Alabama put pressure on Carson Beck? Can Carson Beck, who has not had a lot of pressure all season long, he's not been sacked a lot, he's been able to stand back there and just drop passes to Brock Bowers when he's been in and their other receivers, can Alabama get to him? I think they can some, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do it the entire game. With Milroe, if Milroe can run all over the field like he did against LSU, I think that Alabama can have a lot of success. But Georgia's defense is better than LSU's by far, so Georgia's going to put some pressure on Milroe. He might make a mistake or two, something he hasn't done in a while, but he's having to step up in competition again. If he reverts back to Texas form, it could be a problem. I do believe that the crowd's going to be 50-50 for the most part. It's going to be a lot of fans from both teams. Alabama, they're going to give it everything they've got. And my family wants Alabama to win, and they want me to pick them, but I can't do it. I'm going to go with Georgia to beat Alabama 35-31 and end the Crimson Tide's playoff chances. There's going to be no Texas debate, no debate with Oregon, Washington, all the other teams. They're not going to win. They're going to give it everything they've got. And you never know. Anything's possible. And it's Nick Saban. We're talking about Nick Saban. The guy's won more championships than any other coach in college football history. But Kirby Smart, they've been the better team the last 2 years, and I think they'll edge out the Crimson Tide.
Is that true? Did he actually? Is he the most? He probably is the most. I mean, 1-7. I don't think any other coach won 7. Anyways, AHT go away. Listen, I mean, I think that Alabama will be ready to play, but I mean, people were saying, SEC fans are of course saying this is the real national championship game and all that. And I'm like, no. But I don't know. I feel like Kirby will be ready. I think Saban will both be ready. I just don't. Alabama's offense has looked better, but I just don't think it's there yet to be able to compete for 4 quarters with Georgia. So I do think that Carson Beck, Brock Bowers, and company will be able to put it together, and I do think that Georgia will win 38-24 over Alabama and win the SEC championship. That's my pick.
Michigan Mooses, he thinks that Bama can pull it off. And the thing is that Alabama barely beat Auburn in 2021, which Corey Brooks in the right end zone catching the ball. And then you had Alabama beat Georgia. So they could do it again. Michigan Moose's Bowers is hurt. I thought he was back.
Yeah.
He's back. He's been back for 3 weeks, and he's lighting it up again. So that's made Georgia's offense a lot more dangerous with him back, and I think that might be enough. I mean, like I said, Alabama is a great team. They are a great team. They have not fallen off like Clemson has. And they definitely, if they play to the best of their ability, and Nick Saban has them rolling, and they play, and they get that Auburn game behind them, they play, the best football that they possibly can, they definitely get a win.
Yeah, I mean, Bowers hasn't been playing the whole game of every game because, he's still in some pain. But I do believe that he'll play in the SEC championship game.
He says Bowers out versus Georgia Tech. Did he not play at all in that game?
I mean, the ankle has just been sore, but I do think that he'll play against Alabama.
Check real quick. Georgia football check. See if he played against Georgia Tech. I didn't see much of the game. I know it was close, but there was other games on. Box score.
He's definitely going to play against Alabama, though.
He didn't catch a pass.
He didn't play
Georgia Tech, so I guess he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to play in this game. I see no chance that he sits against Alabama. He'll play.
All right. Do you want to hop over to SMU Tulane now?
That sounds good. Man, I can't wait for Oregon, Washington, and Georgia, Bama. They're both going to be fantastic. But this is a good game as well. SMU Tulane, I mean, it's an underrated game because, again, it's going to be overshadowed by Georgia Bama, but it will be a game I will check out, especially at the end with Georgia Bama is presumably over first, and this one still might be on. Tulane's favored by 5.5. Preston Stone's been great for SMU. Probably a quarterback no one's talking about because is his stats as, elite as Tanner Mordecai's was last year? Probably not yards-wise, but still putting up really good stats. 28 touchdowns, 6 picks, 3,200 yards. And SMU is a team that, despite what they've lost, they've still been able to show their offensive prowess, and they've been a very consistent team the last few years. Tulane has looked poor lately, and that's worrisome for the Green Wave. They have not looked good against teams like ECU. They've struggled in other games. Yes, they beat UTSA last week, but UTSA did not play that well either. And I believe that if SMU plays the way they've looked the last few weeks and Tulane plays the way that they've looked the last few weeks, SMU probably can win. But it's another game where it's at Tulane because it's a smaller
Tulane
league.
doesn't have a great home field advantage, though, as I've seen.
They don't, but it's still significant. It matters. Then the fans will be there. You're right. It's not a big stadium. It's pretty small, and it's not as rowdy as some other crowds, like a Boise or a BYU, and on the smaller side. Like it is on a very small stadium, and SMU probably won't be affected by it too much. But Michael Pratt, he's been there so long, and Michael Pratt, he wins. He just finds ways to win. The running back's been really good as well. But I think that Tulane will find a way. It's going to be close. I have a lot of these games being close because these are going to be dogfights. But I'm going to go with Tulane to beat SMU 34-27. I think they'll cover the spread barely, and Michael Pratt will get a late game sealing touchdown to get the win and possibly for them to make the Cotton Bowl if things work out. But maybe they still won't get it if another team gets it. But who knows? We'll see.
Mm-hmm. So, wait, what was your pick?
I'm going with Tulane to beat SMU 34-27.
Not so fast, my friend. I'm going to go, I don't know, man. SMU's been playing better as of late. I'm going to trust SMU because they've been playing better lately than Tulane. Preston Stone has looked better than Michael Pratt in the past couple games. SMU might go to the ACC, and they might get 9 wins in the ACC next year with how they've been playing. I mean, that's also because the ACC's look bad recently.
Yeah, it's still crazy that they're going to the ACC, man.
Mm-hmm.
What in the world? Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go SMU 31, Tulane 17.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. You definitely have a point with Preston Stone playing better than Michael Pratt. But just something about Pratt, though. He, like I said, finds ways to win, even when it's not pretty. And Tulane, trust me, they have not looked good the last few weeks. And if SMU won, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I almost picked them, but I just think that Tulane will find a way like he's done so many times in his Green Wave career.
Now, there should be JMU and Troy, but it's App State and Troy.
It's unbelievable that the APR score can get him into a bowl game, but it couldn't get him into the Sun Belt Championship. couldn't find a way to make that work. But App State, they're not as good as they've been the last few years. They're still having a good season, 8-4. Their quarterback has 33 touchdowns, 9 picks, 3,200 yards, so that's solid. But they haven't been as good as they used to be. Coastal even beat them at App State. So if Coastal's winning and Coastal hasn't had as good of a year, they're not as good. Troy, about had as good of a year as they had last year. The running back's been great on the ground. They haven't been talked about as much as last year because they only have 1 loss. Late in the year, when you have 2 losses, smaller school, no one really talks about it. You got to have 1 loss or no loss for anyone to really pay attention to you. But I still think Troy's better than App State, even though their coach is rumored for a couple jobs, John Sumrall. So we'll see again if that affects, just like with Jason Candle. It could. But App State has not looked good enough for me to pick them. I'm going to go with Troy to win 31-21. One of the first games that actually have by more than 1 score. I also had Toledo beat Miami, Ohio by more than 1 score as well. Most of them I have being very close, but I do have Troy winning.
Now, Troy lost to Kansas State and JMU. They lost to JMU, and although I know App State did beat JMU, though. So I'll give App State that. But, yeah, I mean, if this was a neutral site game, Maybe I could see App State pulling it off, but it is in Veterans Memorial Stadium in Troy. So I'm going to go with Troy to win. I'll go Troy 34, Appy State 27.
Yeah, and I mean, it again, to your point, makes a difference having the home crowd with these smaller conference games. They do really influence things, not being on a neutral site. If App State looked a bit better this year and they hadn't lost to Coastal, might have changed my pick. But Troy has just been a better looking team all season long. So I think they will win.
All right, Big Ten, 23 points. I mean, it's accurate, but 23 points.
I'm telling you right now, Will, this is not going to be a close game, and I'm not picking it to be a close game. All these other games I have being fairly close, not this time, because Iowa, if this was the regular Big Ten, no divisions, Iowa wouldn't be here. Iowa would be playing a lot tougher of opponents, and they would have gone like 8-4 or 7-5, maybe even 6-6 at worst. Iowa, congratulations that they're here for the final time as the Big Ten West representative, but they're not that good. They're a decent team only because their defense is insane. Like
Purdue
always.
was better last year, man. Purdue was better than them last year.
I agree with that.
Purdue last year was better.
Purdue actually was better than Iowa because Purdue had an offense. Aiden O'Connell could actually threaten teams that were better. And you saw at one point, wasn't Purdue like within one score in like the third quarter or something? Or like say they kept it relatively close until the fourth and they just blew it open. This game, Iowa, if they could score, it'd be different, but they can't. So it doesn't matter how many times Iowa gets stops on Michigan because they might get a few, but it ain't going to matter because of the fact that Iowa can't score. And Michigan's defense is not going to let Deacon Hill do anything, and their ground game isn't going to happen. So even if Iowa can shut down Blake Corum, J.J. McCarthy's going to have his way. There's just no way that I could see Iowa winning. Anything can happen. It's college football. So I never say that it can't happen. But if Iowa won this game, I would be so shocked. I would be blown away by the result if Iowa won. I wouldn't even know what to think. I know you would as well. No one would pick Iowa. If anybody picks Iowa, you're either a fan or I don't know. There's no reason to pick them. So I'm going to go with Michigan to win 35-10. I only have it being a bit lower scoring and not a bigger blowout just because of the fact I feel like Michigan will just kind of coast in the game, not do anything ridiculous, kind of just cruise to a victory. And I was not going to put any pressure on them to score into the 40s and 50s. I'll go 35-10 just for that reason alone. But Michigan definitely can run up the score because Iowa, like I said, can't do anything on offense.
The score that I had before the show, and I'll stick with it, 45-0 Michigan.
And it could be. They could blank them. They really could. I was trying to be nice to Iowa by giving them 10. But Michigan's going to beat them big time. It's going to be a blowout. And Iowa, like I said, if they win or keep it close, it would be a miracle.
Mm-hmm. All right, in our last and final game, Louisville and Florida State.
Only a 2.5-point favorite for FSU. The bettors are not. They are not on the side of Florida State right now without Jordan Travis. They're probably looking at that Florida game, and they see a team that barely won against a team that's not making a bowl game. And Louisville has been playing better than Florida, even though their schedule has been bad. The schedule is terrible. That's why no one respects Louisville anymore because of the schedule and the fact they just lost to Kentucky, who's supposed to be terrible because they lost to South Carolina. But Louisville's still a good team, have had a great year, record-wise for sure. And Jeff Brom deserves a lot of credit. Where this game's going to be won is if Florida State's defense can shut down Louisville's offense. If they can do that and they can keep this a lower scoring game, Florida State can win. That's what they have to do because without Travis, Florida State's not going to score a ton of points in this game. If Louisville scores 30, it's over. I think that Louisville has the game. I don't see any path for Florida State to win if Louisville scores over 30 points because I just don't see Tate Rodemaker getting that much better and throwing for 250, 300 yards, couple touchdowns. He's probably going to be held to around 150, maybe 200 at the max. if he plays a bit better than he did in the Swamp, because it's going to be a more favorable atmosphere than being in the Swamp. So he could play a little bit better. He was banged up, but he did return, so he should be fine. Louisville, Plummer is turnover prone. He makes mistakes, 11 picks.
Yeah,
and that,
big.
again,
I mean,
that's why I'm saying the defense for Florida State's key.
If they could get like a scoop and score like they did against Clemson, that would be pivotal.
Because that's the only reason they won. They wouldn't have beat Clemson if it wasn't for that. So, like you said, if Plummer makes a couple mistakes and Florida State's defense plays really well, that's where they're going to win. I'm betting that they are. So I'm going to go with Florida State to beat Louisville 28-21. But that's the only reason. Because if you look at the fact that if Jack Plummer throws for 300 yards and he's getting it to Thrash and Jordan's having a good day on the ground, they're going to win the game. But if Florida State defense can shut him down, again, he's very turnover prone. Sports Talk with Austin says, Jeffrey, the disrespect is real. How dare you call one over Notre Dame weak? I didn't say the win over Notre Dame was weak. I know you're laughing, but I said the schedule was weak. The schedule is 12 games. That's one game. You look at some other team schedules that these teams have gone 7-5, and there's an argument to be made that if that team played Louisville's schedule, they'd be even better than 10-2. They could be undefeated. They could have one loss. That's how bad Louisville's schedule has been. It's not Louisville's fault. That's who they've played, and they've taken care of business outside of the Pitt game and the Kentucky game. They've done really well. I'm not discrediting them, but they're not a top 10 team. And the only reason people think they can win is because Travis is out. And I know, Austin, you don't want that narrative, obviously, but it's the way it is. If they beat Florida State, like 28-21, 35-28, whatever, everybody's going to be like, if Travis was in, this wouldn't have happened. And that's true. It wouldn't have happened. So Louisville has a golden opportunity to win the ACC. They can't blow it. This is their chance. They can win the ACC without Travis. They can do it, but I think Florida State's defense will stop Plummer. But if Louisville wins, Travis being out is why for sure.
This is the toughest game to call.
And it shouldn't be tough. Like I said, it should not be tough. But the circumstances making it tough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I never made my decision before the show. Dang it, man. I'm gonna do it just to conflict with you. 28-24 Louisville.
Man, come on, man. Louisville beat Florida State. All right. I mean, like I said, you could be right. I hate it for Florida State, though. And part of me just doesn't want Florida State to blow their season like this. Because I know some people don't want them making the playoff because
I don't either. That's why.
Since Travis is not there, they're not going to be able to compete. I understand that. But for what they've done and what Travis did, I just would hate to see them lose. I really would, and I would hate
want to see them in the playoff, man. They're just gonna get killed.
I know that's the conflict of interest, though.
Yeah,
you don't want them in the playoff because a Washington and Oregon, Alabama, Texas, and even Ohio State would be a better game. I get it. I'm with you. So I see the narrative of why people want them to lose, but then again, I don't want them to lose because Travis did a great job. And Moose is right. Florida State, even with Travis, is probably the weakest undefeated team. But they were still really good. They were a good team. I know the Boston College game, but that was one of those deals where they slacked up late. They were up by like 18 in that one, or 21, and then they just let Boston College come back. So you're right, Moose. They are the weakest undefeated team. But if Travis was in, no one would be picking Louisville. And, yeah, they probably would not win a playoff game even with him, but they would be more deserving of being there. I just hope they can win for him, even though they're going to get blown out. Maybe I'm taking the wrong approach because, yet again, they're going to get destroyed without him. But it is what it is. They had a great year, and it would stink for them to lose it all now because of his injury.
Mm-hmm.
But if Louisville wins because of it, great for Louisville, and them winning an ACC title, something they haven't done in a hot minute, so that would be great for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, conference championship games are going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Bama are the big ones. I'm looking forward to them. Good luck to everybody's team that is in the game. Good luck to Louisville, Austin. Good luck to Michigan Moose, and good luck
Austin, I don't know if you shock the world and win. I don't think it's shocking the world.
It's not shock the world. It would be with Travis.
Yeah.
It's just not shocking the world. The spread indicates it is not. It's a 2.5-point spread. It won't be a shock at all. I mean, a lot of people are picking Louisville just because Travis is out, so it would not be a shock at all whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a shock Kentucky beat Louisville either. What was shocking is Pitt beating them. That was a shock.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeffrey, should we do one Army Navy preview real quick?
You can if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Army Navy preview.
I didn't prep for it though, so I don't know. Austin says, "Let me have my moment." Dude, I'm happy for you, man. Again, I just hate it has to be this way. I would rather your team, Austin, beat Florida State with Travis. I would rather that happen. I'd want to see it because then it'd be awesome. I'd be like, man, Louisville's great, Austin. I'm blown away that they won, but winning this way, it's not Louisville's fault that Travis got hurt. I'm not saying it, but winning this way, it's just not going to be as impactful.
Mm-hmm.
It's still awesome though, not regardless.
Army's a 2.5-point favorite. Both teams are 5 and 6.
I'm just gonna let you pick first, and we'll see what I do. I don't know, man. Both teams aren't very good.
These games are always hard to pick. I'm gonna go Army to win. The 2.5-point spread. Army minus 2.5. Yeah, I was gonna pick Army. I'll go Army 13-10.
Yeah, looking at the FPI predictor, they give Army a 62% chance to win, and the spread is 2.5. And Army has done a little bit better of a job passing the ball than Navy has. And Army is a pretty good, run team as well, obviously being with the triple option. Navy's leading rusher isn't as good as Army's leading rusher. I'll go with Army to win 17-14 over Navy. I think it's going to be a very close game. But since Army stats are a bit better and they're favored, I'm going with Army.
Well, all right, everyone. So next week we're going to be recapping the conference championship games, and then we're going to be doing a pick'em for the non-New Year's Six or playoff bowl games. So that should be a ton of fun.
Can't wait for those. And, man, those opt-outs are probably going to get me again. I'm going to try to do my research, but there will be opt-outs that happen after we do our picks and before the games. They sometimes are happening on the day almost, it seems. So it's going to be hard to do the picks, but still, like you said, Will, it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely talking about the conference championship results are going to be great as well.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for being here, everybody.